Okay, much appreciated. Harat Habab, your facilitator today. I'm one of our student teachers. My name is Nabab Katnias. I'm a student teacher of the Master Teacher, Dr. Malachi Z York. And welcome, as already iterated by my brother. Wu-Sabat Outformation Classes UK, Natural Ether Energy is what we're talking about today. And it will be the final part. Welcome to those who've joined us, to say, on the Zoom platform, and those who have joined us live on Facebook. Obviously, for a full interactive experience, you need to join us on the Zoom platform, as we're not monitoring the Facebook page while we're live to class. So any comments or questions that are posted in that a particular forum, then obviously those will be picked up after the class. There is a link, I think, in the chat to join us on Zoom, but it's entirely your choice. If you're more comfortable on Facebook, then that's fine. But if you've got questions, etc., then you'll need to put those, for the moment at least, until we change up our setup slightly. You'll need to join us on the Zoom platform for us to pick up any questions on comments while we are live. Okay, so as I say, this is, I think Harat Habab mentioned part 3. Obviously a little bit lost in time. This is actually part 4 for us on this class. Such an extensive subject it is, so we want to get that wrapped up today, and obviously we can never cover enough of the subjects and the details in the book. So obviously the best thing to do is get the book at some point, if you are able to get the full detailed knowledge, etc. But obviously we're here to try and help you to get some understanding into an overstanding of this particular subject matter that we are bringing to you today. Okay, so what we're going to do is just do a quick poll. And so what I want to do is just check that you can hear me okay over the chant. So what we need to do is vote in the affirmative or the negative, depending on whether you can hear me clearly over the Om chant. So that's on the screen if you are obviously live on Zoom. So if you can vote now, please. If you are having any sound difficulties, then you can put those details in the chat, and we'll do our best to assist you with that. Also, in a moment, I'll show you where the sound settings are also on your Zoom setup. Okay, so that seems to be no one's reporting that there any difficulty with sound. So if there is, then please put that in the chat for us in that poll now. And then can you just do the same thing, so in the affirmative or the negative, just to confirm that you can see this presentation. Okay, if I move it back and forth, that should be there clearly. Okay, excellent. Just give a few more seconds for that. Okay, so again, if you do have any problems, by all means, just put that in the chat and we'll do our best to assist you in that regard. Okay, so we're going to do a short introduction, but first off, to start the class off properly with some form of positive thinking as part of the Musbatu or Sabaean culture. I'm going to recite Paa Pau'ut, referred to as the affirmation, so we can start off, as I say, just help us to connect and make sure we get the information out to you as clearly as it was conveyed to us. So Paa Pau'ut, and I'm going to convey that in the Misbatia or Sabaean language, and then I'll translate it into English for full and proper understanding. Abdoy Kale Namazurat Wu Fakur Ame kasam un Paa Pau'ut. Anuki jawef pa ashuk Paa Pau'ut. Wu kale ashuk kawun jawef neya. Anuki kasam un Paa Pau'ut. Wu Paa Pau'ut kawun kasam un neya. Anuki wahu ame Paa Pau'ut. Wu Paa Pau'ut kawun wahu ame neya. Nako kadur najo ame kasam un Paa Pau'ut. Wu habub ame mushakhas un. Nakuk kadur kawan kale pafef. Nakuk tayur jawef Paa Pau'ut. Ame wase ame tayarni. Kawun lake bakoy jawef Paa Pau'ut. Anuki abed bin afashni. Paa Pau'ut kawun anuki. Paa Pau'ut kadur nakuk kadur. Paa Pau'ut amul nakuk amul. Okay, so let's translate that back for you in English. So we started off by, as we start with all prayers, chants, or activity, I suppose, in our culture, by saying begin all prayers and thinking as a part of the all. We've been talking about the all significantly in these past few classes. And then we said, I am in the divine love of the all expanding, and all divine love is in me. I am part of the all expanding, and the all expanding is part of me. Is a part of me. I am one as the all expanding, and the all expanding is one as me. I can succeed as part of the all expanding and fail as an individual person. I can be all that I want in the all expanding, as long as my want is to stay in the all expanding. I am never by myself. The all expanding is, I am. The all expanding can, I can. The all expanding does, I do. So if you've been following these classes and if you've missed the first 3 parts of this, then you can catch them on our YouTube channel, which can give you the details a little bit later on in the class. But you should be able to gauge some greater understanding and layers of this affirmation and how it pertains to who we are and the environment that we find ourselves in today. So, I say the webinar is being broadcast over the Zoom platform, and so there are a number of controls if you join us for the first time that you just need to be mindful of. So on your control panel, you can see your audio settings there, depending on what device you're on. Your audio settings, are there on the left as what is classified as an attendee. If you do have any messages for us that are not questions, that can be feedback, technical issues, feedback about the class, whatever the case may be, then you can put those comments, in the chat area and select panelist and all participants. Okay, that makes sure that everybody on the chat can see those comments. And so, if you're on Facebook, then you're going to put those comments in the chat area, but just be mindful that they're picked up until after the class is finished. If you do have a question, then there's 2 ways to ask questions. The first way is for you to raise your hand. And if you do so, what will happen is that the facilitator will monitor that, and periodically I'll ask that if there's any questions. And then what happens is you'll receive a message on screen, which will ask you to unmute your microphone, which you need to then select in the affirmative. And then you can ask your question live, in this case today, to myself as one of the student teachers today, and I'll do my best to answer your questions. If you've dialed in, then in order to raise your hand, you need to press *9, and then you'll be asked to unmute your phone. Once you unmute your phone, you need to press *6 to mute it, and then *6 again to mute it back. So it's important, if you do ask a question, that you will have the power then as an attendee to mute yourself and unmute yourself at will. So we ask you to make sure that your phone stays, or device, stays muted in order that you don't disrupt the class, obviously, going forward. If you don't want to come live in terms of verbally yourself, then you've got the option of asking a written question. And say similar, the facilitator will then ask that question for you in writing. Obviously, I'll do my best to answer that question. If you've got any follow-up, then by all means, please feel free to post that in the same conversational link or ask a further question through that medium. If you are asking questions and things, say on the Facebook platform, then those will be picked up, as I say, after the class is finished. If you say want to ask questions, then you need to come in via the Zoom platform. And let's say the link is in the should be in the chat area. Periodically, we haven't got any recap quizzes today. There is a question at the very end of the class, which I'll ask people to contribute to, so please pay attention. May require a little bit of previous paying attention to some of the previous parts as well, but not essentially so, to contribute. So just do your best in terms of answering that. But we do have poll questions periodically, and so if we do, then so you can do your best, as I say, your best answer. And if you don't know, you can just simply give your best guess. It's anonymous, so we're not catching scores or keeping scores in that regard, but it's just to check or maintain that you are understanding what we are teaching, because it's a class, hence why Hara'im Habab earlier asked people to take or have some device or whatever to record notes and various other things, so you can go away and check this out, check out what we're saying, confirm it, etc. And then you become part of the learning process. As I say, one of the famous teachings of the, or sayings of the master teacher is, don't believe me, check it out. It doesn't just apply to him, it applies to everything, as I say, in your life, as a Sabaean, in the cultural sort of norms of our ancestors who are of that mindset. We build pyramids based on faith and belief. We obviously have to know things. So, as I say, the best way, if you don't understand something, is to ask questions by way of the means that we have provided for you thus far. So, I'm going to get started in the class, do a short introduction. Let's say we do have to finish on time today, so I won't be running over, because I'm sure I've got a further meeting to attend. So, therefore, we need to move through the class fairly rapidly. So I'm going to keep the introduction fairly short today, giving us time to focus on the final part so we can get to the end of where we need to be for today. And then the next class will be going on to a new subject. But in full and proper introduction, it's always important, as I say, to give you a little bit of history if you're just joining for the first time, our story of who the master teacher is. So Dr. Malachi Z, Dr.York was born in Takoradi, which is in West Africa, Ghana, in the 26th of June 1945, and he was born to Mary Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn. So obviously it's important in our culture to give the proper and due respect to our sacred feminine. We are a matriarchal as opposed to a paternalistic society, which is something that came in with the Anunnaki. So we are feminine first, and feminine, as we are aware in terms of gender, gave birth to masnoid, which is male, and bathanoid, which is neutral gender individuals, all coming out of female. And so, as we know in our culture, this culture of spiritual science of Wu-Sabat, still sound right, reasoning, factual information, it's all based upon nature's system. So it's only right that the starting point of that is the female or feminine. So oftentimes when people talk about teachers, leaders, or great people, they rarely often give props or respect, I should say, to their parents. So it's important that you understand where this the lineage or lineage is coming from. So Mary Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, one of our crossed over now, she was born March 10th, 1929, also was known as Fatima Miriam, crossed over in August 4th, 2012, and now becomes one of our Muslafu or ancestors, as we translate in the language. And as I say, very important, arguably, as I say, one of the most important sacred feminine in the last, arguably, 6,000 years, insofar as when we understand our culture, we're looking at a culmination of various different teachers that have come along, let's say, to assist in our transformation or ascension journey, transforming back from mortals back into deities again. So Mary Abbot of Dr.York, without her, there would not be the physical body of Dr. Malachi Z. K. York. And the other third of that union is Al-Hadi Abdul Rahman Al-Mahdi, the sacred masculine, and his father, as I say, who was part of the royal family out of Sudan, and is the grandson of Mustafa Muhammad Al-Mahdi of the Sudan, as I say, a great master, Karama or spiritualist. You see there, 1845. And transitioned or disappeared in 1885. Yeah, from Midlands, as I say, Master Karama or spiritualist, not Sudanese actually in origin, actually, Kadem Mahmatu, an ancient Egyptian in origin of the Dongolawi tribe, who was hired by the Sudanese to drive the British and the Turks out of Africa. So a great lineage, as you see his father there. And then his own father, Sayyid Abdul Rahman Al-Mahdi. Unfortunately, he was assassinated in 1970. But as I say, a great contribution not only to his own culture, but as I say, one of the third parties in producing, as I say, Dr. Malachi Z. York. And this is him at age 25, his initiation, where, as I say, he was known as Isa al-Hadi al-Mahdi, and at age 25 talks about being housed by a whole light being referred to as al-Khadir, or the green one. So in our culture, we have to understand a term in ancient Egypt, or I say Kadam Muhammatu, as they say in the Sabatic language. As I say, we don't dig up the bones of our ancestors to find knowledge of the past. In actuality, our knowledge of the past comes by way of outformation. And you see outformation, which comes from above. Understood? Yes, and sound, when we talk about sound, right reasoning in terms of the meaning of Wu-Sabat, sound does not mean necessarily what we just hear through our ears. It also, in Wu-Sabat, it denotes what we receive from space and beyond. So the term in ancient Tamaray, which dealt with the renewal, of our story, which happens every 24,000 years, the vessel or being was referred to as the Amun Nabab Raye Achakhtar. Understood? And so this is a vehicle or vessel which allows our ancestors to in-house, to convey, let's say, the outformation coming to us in the form of information necessary to aid our, as I say, transformation journey, being that, as I say, particularly in the last 6,000 years, we have been under the spell of, they say Rekay, Shalel, Nawam, the spell of sleep, forgotten who and what we are and our purpose, so on and so forth. So he states or claims he was housed by El Khadir, the green one, and you judge a tree by the fruit it bears. And the signs of that are the prolific doctrine that was released, as I say, from 1970, officially unofficially in 63, but from 1970 officially, which has led to over 1,000 books being produced. Now, this was dealing with the first half an hour, which really addressed what arguably is known in ancient Egypt, at least, as the lesser mysteries, but what most would know as the monotheistic religions, which, as I say, arguably how you did most know, or their knowledge of what they consider to be the divine, so on and so forth, has come or been influenced particularly by those books. One time, and if it still is today, the Bible was the best-selling book on the planet. As I say, informed many belief systems, within the Western Hemisphere particularly, and was utilized, or spread, as they say, by missionaries throughout Africa. So they came with food and medicine, etc., in one hand, and gave them the Bible in the other hand to allegedly civilize them with this so-called religious doctrine and religious information, asking them to give up thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of cultural norms, traditions, and so on and so forth in faith of, in the place of Western beliefs. Now, around about 1996, we were starting to move in from those religious degrees now into our culture, and so therefore there was a transition that took place as we started to move into our culture in terms of upgrading of information. Understood? So we're moving from to a higher level of those teachings. So those early religious studies would be considered baby teachings. Do you understand? And now we're moving obviously to a higher state or higher level of information. And that came with the Holy Tablets. Holy Tablets in 1996 was considered to be the bridge between religion and reality. And then after that came the Sacred Records of Atum, which brought us into reality. And therefore incoming came His Excellency Dr. Malachi Z, in-housed by Razakian or Riskian, referred to as Paa B'ah Yaanuwn. And so the ancient Egyptians referred to these individuals or beings as the Natharu, where they get the English word nature from, and that word itself translates into English as overseers. And by way of that, but however, their proper name is Murzaku or Ruskiyan or Razaku. It means providers. Understood? And so from that time there, in terms of that transition, you're now moving into the time where we're really learning about our culture as we've gone from, I suppose, those religious degrees dealing with or setting the record straight around faith and belief, and then moving to, as I say, where we are at now, the new spirituality in the hereafter and thereafter is dealing with, as I say, actual facts, master secrets, and a new way of life, as I say, Partarak. So if you understand that in order to break this spell that we've been under, a new spiritual science of the Negroid or Nagaru, which is referred to in this day and time as Wu-Sabat, so dealing with factual information. Each of different races has their own spiritual science, which is why they're able to unify mentally, which then allows the physical unity to follow. As we understand, nothing can be done right unless the mind is right, and our mind, we had been effectively brain dirtied and therefore needed to be brainwashed. You understand, in those first 30 years. So when Wu-Sabat was first brought to our people, it was too heavy for them. They rejected it. You understand, it was too highly scientific, and so we wanted to have belief systems, so on and so forth. So the master teacher, being a master teacher, stated that I came giving you what you want, so you would learn to want what I really came to give. So he gave them at that time what they wanted, belief. But as happens, you understand, sometimes they may sweeten the bitter medicine with honey or some other sweetening agent to make, so you get the medicine, but you also get what you like the taste of, so that you will at least take in that medicine. So we were given those religious degrees in those first 30 years, 1970 down to the year 2000, symbolically the first half an hour, where a number of books were written in order to set the record straight on the belief system. As I say, bringing you into the times to say where the devil's rule would effectively end from 4000, or some say 3761 BCE, with the birth of their Adam, the red and ruddy race. We're looking at the Bible, or we're looking at the Bible as Kadem Mahmatu, the ancient Egyptians. We saw that whole story as the birth of the Caucasian race. Or the Kukasu, as we say in the Sabaic language, which you find obviously in Revelations, I think it's chapter 3, verse 14, where it talks about the Ammon witnessing the creation of God. The Ammon. With a definite article ahead of it, which is us or our ancestors, as Ammon. Ammon, the hidden one, understood, who is one of our ancestors incarnated of blood relative, but all religions end their prayers in the name of our ancestors. So a stolen or misappropriated, arguably, term. The Hebrews say Amen, the Christians say Amen, and the Muslims say Amen. They're all taken from Amun, who witnessed the creation, as I say, of the Hebraic Lord or God in there by when that came along. You understand? Or us witnessing it from his story. So they say history means the past or before. So the question is obviously, well, what does prehistory mean? So his story started when he started to write things down. So us, as I say, being under that for so many years needed an antidote, and part of the antidote is that you have a little bit of the poison within the antidote in order to deliver a cure. So that came in the form of Wu-Sabat being spoon-fed within the degrees over the first 30 years. But then after that, as I say, it was necessary then to go full throttle, some might say, or you are now, all those mysteries, etc., of my story, the secrets behind it, were now being uncovered in the second half an hour, where you would now start to express and know exactly who you are, what this doctrine is, where it came from, and how it links, as I say, to the ancient past, and how that needs to be brought in, reimagined for us in this day and time, because the genes have tumbled forward in order for us to take back control of our destiny, which links to the word destination. So where are we going? So the hereafter is here after the devil's rule ended in those first 30 years, and then the thereafter relates, as we've said many times in this class before, to the 2012 symbolic situation there, where this is where the axis of the planet starts to point. In this instance now, it changes every 12 to 13,000 years, and it's now starting to point towards the center of the galaxy, where there is a massive black hole, and this causes, as I say, a number of incidents to take place on the planet Earth, which is aiding our transformation. So this symbolically was us moving from a matriarchal to a patriarchal to a matriarchal society, and hence why symbolically from 2012 you saw the rise in female or sacred feminine leadership, understood as the energies started to change or reverse itself in favor of that, as all manner of things, planet, those in housing the planet, universe, etc., everything is starting to correct itself, having been, say, under the control of adverse forces or unnatural forces at their high, at least for the last 6,000 years, and that energy will reach its apex in another 6,000 or so years. So, as I say, there was a pathway or a road, a lot of information had to be conveyed in a very short space of time, and that revealed who is sitting in the seat. And I say, if you go to the previous parts of this, we go into this in a little bit more detail in terms of any of the introductions of the first parts of these classes, so that you understand that, let's say, terms like God, Lord, so on and so forth, these are titles, they're not the actual names of individuals sitting in the seat. And as I say, in Revelation chapter 10, verse 7, it talks about the mystery of God should be finished. And so according to them, the kind of who's sitting in the seat of the Wizard of Oz, as I say, who's been getting all this glory, the unseen deities, and when oftentimes when they're saying unseen, they really mean absent, because the individual that they're making reference to has disappeared, purported in all of these monotheistic religions to come back again. You understand? But they seem to be absent. Seemingly, they help music artists, Hollywood stars, footballers, etc. Because when they seem to win these awards, they say, thank God, thank this person, thank that, etc. So they're thanking the divine. But it seems that children that are sick and various other things of that nature, these things are allowed to go on, innocent people are allowed to die, so on and so forth, based on their understanding of what this divine is. And these are all based on, let's be honest, stories, myths and legends, all given to us by the Caucasian society, let's say, that we live in. You understand? The Sands people, who are the first people on the planet Earth, understood and have the characteristics of the root races of the planet Earth, but they do not have the light-colored iris or blue eyes of the Caucasian, but they do have the curly or nappy hair or kingly hair of the Nagaru. They have the ridged brow of the Aborigine, and then they have the indented chin of the Dravidian, understood, and they have the folded eyelid of the Orientals. So these are genetic markers placed by the extraterrestrials, if we want to use modern day terminology, that created these variations of different races from the original, as I say, Sands people who housed the planet Earth, or were placed here, I should say, by our ancestors to evolve and evolve out of the waters onto land, as we see as the bipedal life form that we see today, hominids, which was originally based on a ferronucleic acid structure, on into what we see today, into a ribonucleic structure, giving birth to deoxyribonucleic acid structure with our now 24,000 genomes, which correlates, as I say, to the design of this particular solar system, which is based upon the number 24, so Project 24, which was the in-housing, as I say, of 12 etheric beings from the Orion star constellation, Sabat, and excuse me, Sabat and Sahat, I should say, and then 12 female etheric entities from the Sirius or Sirius star constellation, as Sabat or Sirius, giving birth to Project 24, which moved us from, as I say, neutral gender beings with male and female still within that. However, we then split into male and female singular sex life forms that we see ourselves today. Some people still being born as neutral gender based on the 7 gender types or chromosomal configurations in the original design. So all of that is to say that, as I say, we're starting now in this day and time by way of the incarnation of the incarnated master, all as part of a larger plan, let's say, to remove those adverse 6 ether forces having control of the planet. And as nature is forcing this change, obviously we have to be attuned and aligned with natural nature as it's coming to the end of the cycles. All things are aligning themselves, and we must know or separate ourselves at least and understand our own transformational journey in the form of our spiritual science, which all leaders who have come have said our strength is in our unity. And therefore, when the spiritual science of Wu-Sabat revisits or comes back around again to be renewed, as he talks about their second resurrection, then it revisits or visits the posterity, in the sense of the mind of the descendants in the first instance. Yeah, so that was a very short introduction of who we are. As I say, if you go back on the YouTube channel, or even our Facebook page, you can see the previous parts of this class. We'll be going into more detail, but so we don't miss where we need to be today, going to move forward. Any questions?
There are no questions. Just while I'm on, there's a slight issue with your audio. I think I can detect just a little bit of feedback. I don't know whether you have a loudspeaker on or something. I can hear some feedback, and there's a little bit of glitching on your audio, about 50% of the time.
Okay, I'll try and just bear with me. Let me just try and sort that out one second. Right, I'm not sure if that's any better.
It certainly is.
Okay, no problem. I appreciate that. Yeah, just keep checking with me if there's any issues, then we'll adjust that. So apologies, everybody on the call. Right, okay, so let's go back. I think we've covered all these different elements in the last class. I think we'd finished, I think, broadly with going through this Paa Pau'ut 91. So we talk about natural ether energy. We're really, I suppose, making reference to the fact of the world of things, the world of some things, I suppose, how we got here, how we arrived here, the birth of energy, and what is the driving force behind what is being called creation. Some may refer to it as, and if you notice, it's got an ION at the end, so that denotes motion and movement. In actuality, from the Latin word creare, the word creation means growth. That's what it's talking about. But in order to create, you must exist. So people always talk about the creator this, creator that, creator this, so on and so forth. But in order for the creator to create, he must exist first. And that's how they've given it to us in that religious school. But obviously, I think we've done a reasonable job in seeking to challenge those belief systems and open your eyes at least to what is the expression, or what our ancestors had to say about this, as opposed to what we've learned from Europeans. And that's not making it particularly a racial thing. It's just that the people in charge at the moment have set their stall out, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, and given us their version of what that is. And because those books have been around for a long time, they have, as I say, been placed, those ideals taught, placed, and many times unchallenged, overstood. And we've been left with in great ignorance about how the universe into the dual verses, triverses, multiverse, and if you speak about all of it, you say omniverse, works. So in Paa Pau'ut, chapter 91, which means Paa Pau'ut means the way, we see an interesting point, and it's talking about here, I suppose, these three different states, and starting from dark, silent, all. And that state of, or understanding that before energy, which denotes kind of motion, movement, there's a state within what we're calling existence, where there is no movement or motion. It is stillness. And so in this particular Paa, we get that understanding by use of the term dark. And then out of it came darkness, which within darkness there is degrees, understood, which gave birth then to light. Yeah, and so we've done, as I say, going through these classes to break down to you the difference between dark matter, dark energy, and obviously then the matter world, or the difference between those two elements, which I say is captured very well here, symbolically at least, in this Paa verse. It says, in silent there was born silence, which birthed noise. And in all, Pau'ut was born Paa Pau'ut, the all which birthed things. You understand? So in that regard, we have the world of things, which arguably could be, well, not arguably, is said to be energy, versus the world of some things, which is the world of matter. Understood? Now, the world of things is still material, it's still matter, but to differentiate it, because when people talk about subatomic particles, this is because the first sum, as they considered it to be, is hydrogen. Understood? Yeah, you see that word hydrogen, you see hydrogen, water generator. Now, we've been explaining to you about the obviously from element 1 down to 99, that those elements are matter or energy as matter in transition. So hydrogen and helium is giving birth, obviously, to the hydrogen, which fused, let's say, with helium by way of a sufficient amount of heat being brought together, because both the hydrogen and helium atoms were female. And so therefore, as you know, opposites attract in law, natural law, and opposites attract and alike repels each other. So in order to bring them together, heat was needed. Understood? A significant amount of heat was needed together to fuse, as I say, those 4 hydrogen atoms in order to birth helium, all the way down to carbon, which was the 6th element, which was male. And this helped then, in terms of male and female, coming together to birth, as I say, the different elements within, as I say, our 99, or discovered as 99. There are more than that, but within that system, at least, 99 elements. So the fact of the matter is, you're looking at things in transition, and that is considered to be the world of some things, or the world of light. Something, i.e., it has a weight. That's SUM dot thing, not SOME thing. Yeah, so something have a weight, an atomic weight, whereas the world of things, considered to be nothing, NO dot thing, having no atomic weight, yet, so not necessarily having a weight to be detectable by modern day instrumentation, but yet still existing. You understand? And the world of darkness is within existence, is more significant clearly than the world of light, which only makes up 10% of the of the 24% of dark matter that exists within existence. 10% of that 24% is in actuality the world of things, all the suns, planets, so on and so forth. So the things that we see only make up 10% out of 90% of everything else. You understand? So we are in a dark place. We came out of darkness, and that was the supreme balancement, the peace, so on and so forth. The absence of chaos. Light, as you know, is temporary. Yeah, light is on for a period and eventually burns out. In a room, if actually you put on light in a room, all light in that room is always connected to the same source, generally speaking, in the sand. And so when you switch off the light, all lights go out. Yeah, this is not the same with darkness. Darkness is in the sand, and obviously has various different characteristics within it. So within that darkness, a number of things or forms are produced or born, and this is what you've been learning about in terms of natural ether energy. Understand? So out of stillness, became motion. What were these things? And these various different things have given birth to the world of some things within existence. And that's what we've been exploring in terms of its role. And then also, obviously, our role and how we're connected and what's our importance, as I say, to all of this. So we were getting into the different types of ether, so doing natural ether energy, and the different types of ether to give some understanding, as I say, of what's happening. So now ether, we talk about natural ether energy. So it exists in the same way throughout the omniverse, but however, it is affected by its environment, and is affected by the quality of matter as well, or quality of materials that exist within the various different multi-levels of environments that we find, be it dimensional, universal, dual-versal, multiversal, so on and so forth. As ourselves, as etheric beings, are also affected by our environment. Understood? You can see us being born in many different places around the planet. Understood? And even though we're the same, today now we're very different. Most people think they are black. Certainly in Americas, they think they're black from Africa, but rather a lot of the mixing that has taken place has been Dravidian or influenced, and therefore they have more Asiatic features as opposed to African features. Yeah, so it's an Asiatic black man and woman that we find ourselves in the Americas, even though we were there, as I say, originally before anybody else was there. But we find in terms of our features more aquiline, more thinner lips, so on and so forth. Those are Asiatic influenced interventions within our genome. Understood? So their direct intervention obviously has caused a change in what we look like. In the UK and Europe, obviously see more people from the Caribbean and directly, I suppose, from Africa. So their influence is probably more from Africa than it is, as I say, from Indian mix, although that still has happened in the continent of Africa, and obviously more so in the Caribbean. And so it was also referred to as the West Indies. Obviously, we know Columbus got the naming of it wrong, but it doesn't mean, as I say, you've obviously had a lot of Dravidian influence or mixing in the genome. But nonetheless, even if you place us on different parts of the planet, and you see that, as I say, you can look and see people who look, you say maybe they look West African, for example. You go Jamaica, certain parts of the Caribbean, you see somebody and they look absolutely West African, but obviously have a different, until they speak, you understand? Same in the Americas, probably same in the UK, so on and so forth. Go around and see features from various different tribes or whatever out of Africa, but you see different speaking. So this is where ethers in certain places, and it, as I say, been affected by the subtleties of various different environments, be it food, influence of others, so on and so forth. So ether, as I say, is influenced by environment. Now we've got two interesting types here. So we see ether inside the body. So we see in here physiologically, as it's talking about in terms of the energy inside. And we see ether here, referred to as athar. It's got two different Sabbaic words for understanding. So achach, so obviously talking about the etheric ether within a human being, and then athar, which is talking about ether elementally. Understood? So this is clearly within the environment. So let's explore some of these different types. So you see ultra gaseous matter ether. So when we're talking about energy, say stillness, motion out of stillness, the thing that you have to, I suppose, get into your head is that because in this physical world, for example, I mean, think from a technological point of view, you are surrounded by various different things which connect to each other and enable, I say, a transference of, could be energy, different types of energy. So it could be sound, electrical energy in the form of electricity being transferred around. Let's say in your own homes, you listening to me today, for example. Well, at a certain point, all of that had to be done by way of physical wires in the sand at a certain point, or physical hardware. Now we talk about a lot more about wireless communication, but there is still obviously communication, and there is still a medium necessary for those energies to move from one place to another. So sound, for example, in order for it to travel from one place to another, requires air as the medium, understood, a form of ether. And in order for heat, light, and for those types of things to travel, they need a medium also, and that is ultra gaseous matter, ether, understood. So let's get into that a little bit and see what's taking place. But what we understand from this now is that ether is going to behave one way outside of the human body, and then inside of the human body is still the same characteristics. However, it's going to take on a slightly different function. Yes, because the body in itself, or the human body, is its own universe, or is a universe. So the individual human body is its own universe. They're taking on different characteristics. We're going to go into the Holy Tablets, chapter 7, just to get some more understanding of this. We're going to go a little bit further back, so it's not that clear. So we'll have to reverse back. So start from chapter 7, I think it's tablet 4, verse 222. So it says, 3 subplanes are the realms of your subconscious, 223, and the upper 3 subplanes are the realms of your mental intuition. Some of the terms are old, so we're just it was 1996. That's a bridge between religion and reality, so that's why you get different terms here. So we'll work with them, but obviously in your mind, upgrade them to some of today's terminology, in terms of Wu-Sabat. 224, or the super consciousness of Cadman, son of Atum. 225, it is your super consciousness. 226 is where your soul descends into the spirit and forms the body. 227, in the middle chamber. 228, the first. 229, the world. 230, the last. 231, remember the levels of the mind. 232, the walking conscious mind. 233, as it works through your everyday awareness. 234, and it is clothed in the matter of the physical plane. 235, the subconscious mind operates through the sympathetic nervous system, which is a system of cells, tissues, organs that regulates the body's responses to internal and external stimuli. Invertebrates, obviously, those with a spinal column and upright. It consists of the brain, spinal cord, nerves, ganglia, and different parts of the receptor and effector organs. Effector organs. 236, the subconscious mind as it operates your faculties of intuition. 237, the wisdom of the mind as it operates through you. 238, as yet undeveloped qualities of divinity. 239, are found at the end of the true seeker's path. 240, the plane of force is a plane largely composed of energy forces. So we have our physical plane, and then we go to the plane of force, the spiritual plane, and then fourth is the mental plane, at least when this was described and being written. So plane of force, largely composed of energy forces. 241, and the etheric ka, duplicates of the physical plane's objects. So every physical atom, there is an etheric counterpart. So H1, you think in terms of hydrogen, there's an E1 counterpart to it. 242, the plane of force is not subject to the law of gravitation as you understand it. 243, the plane of force is dominated by the law of attraction. 244, Upon the plane of force, there is neither distance nor time. So we understand in our universe, or the physical universe at least, we have two forces, major forces at work, which is gravity, the other being magnetism. Now, gravity has an opposing or opposite force is levity. So if we think about ourselves standing on the planet, for example, and a spinning object through space, you have a force exerting, as I say, an energy exerting force upon you, which is pulling you towards the center of the planet. So that's pulling you down. That's what's holding us down, not causing us to fly off. And then you have an equal force, which is pushing upwards, referred to as levity. Understood? And so these are some of the inherent forces. Inherent forces, which I think is captured in the symbol referred to as the four winds, which is obviously gravity, magnetism, and then strong and weak nuclear forces. Understood? So the four kind of major forces that they understand how this universe works upon. But when we're dealing with the plane of force, gravitation, as we know it, doesn't apply. So we're dealing with the laws of attraction. Now, when we were dealing with natural ether energy, or we were talking to you about those black dots or nakatat, so we talk about the world of matter, as we expressed previously, from hydrogen, yes, the first sum, all the way up to Einsteinian 99. But if you take that back to our culture in ancient Kamem Mohamatu, then that is 99 deities, understood, from Atum all the way down to Amun. Yeah, we talk about the 99 plus 1, to represent matter as we have it today. When we go beyond hydrogen and we go further and find it's made up of smaller particles, then, or subatomic particles, then make reference to, then to make it simple for everybody, we're dealing with the world of energy. Understood? And the smallest particles that are considered to be matter on the other side of some things, when we get into the world of things, is what we refer to as the nakatat or black, or hamem, nakatat or black dots. Understood? So they're the smallest thing within existence that could be considered to be material. So therefore, because it's not the matter we talk about when we talk about the physical world, we refer to it as energy matter or matter energy. Understood? So the world of things is made up of things. Excuse the bad English, but the world of things is still made up of things. Understood? Yeah. So you need material or matter, and then we need, what do we need? In existence, natural law states that there's matter, space, understood, and time. These are the three things needed for existence, and they are inseparable according to these rules. Why is it point of mentioning it? Because those particles deal with a form of attraction in terms of them being attracted to each other. Natural ether energy, that's one of its characteristics, it being attracted to each other. However, they must be brought together by way of two states, which we touched upon, as I say, in part 3, which is absolute matter and absolute space. So that, some may say, well, that contradicts it a little bit, because you said time is a third element that's necessary there. However, when absolute matter and absolute space come into correlation with each other, it causes, as I say, those nakut or nakatat, or black dots, as I say, to start to be attracted to each other, which forms what's necessary, as I say, to produce what is being referred to as Hamem Magas, or black magic. So magical things happen when space and material are brought into correlation with each other. Understood? As we talked about, it was a very crude example last week, but to help people's understanding, that a musician is basically bringing together, you could argue, non-sound, you understand? So non-sound, if you see that as a thing, you understand? Non-sound and sound. Yeah, so if you took all of the no sound everywhere, absolute non-sound, and you put that in correlation with sound, Then the third aspect of it is the person or individual taking those materials, i.e. the instruments or whatever, and then starting to strum or do something or put together sound in a very magical way. So they're managing two things. The issue is, in this society, we tend to focus on the incidental bit, so the bit that is we're hearing, and not the bit that we're not hearing. Yeah, so so this is what our society has us. It has us focusing on the light elements, but not the non-light elements. So we never give credit to the non-light elements, but the non-light can't, you understand, or the darkness gives birth to the light. So the space, only a musician knows this, but the space is important, or the rest, as they classify it as, is just as important as the sound that's being made. You understand? Otherwise things don't sound. And you know that combination has the power to make people feel significant emotions, make them feel on a high, it can lift them, etc. But then if those spacing and the sound is not done right, it can also be detrimental. So there's a magic that takes place, as I say, in regards to that. And the plane of force, coming back around again, is not subject to gravitational, but deals with the law of attraction. So in different planes of existence, different rules exist. 244. So it says, upon the plane of force, there is neither distance nor time. There is 245, there is no heat or cold. 246, summer or winter. 247, day or shadow. It is a plane of, 248 is a plane of aspiring desires as well as carnal, flesh. 249, the physical plane consists of dense chemical regions of 250 solids, 251 liquids, 252 and gases. And what do we see here? We see 253, and the etheric region consisting of 4 higher physical ethers. Understood. So 254, ultra gaseous matter, which is explained. 255, to come and speak about life force ether. 256, light ether, and 257, and mental ether. Yes, so we're seeing here that we've got different types of the same thing being expressed in different environments, but all allowing energy to transition, as I say, or to have motion or movement from, I say, one place to whatever the destination is. So this is a bit old school, but the attribute of Anu, Elion, El, the Most High, the highest, which say would be reign now to date in ancient Egypt. 259, formed on higher planes. 260, step down to become your intuition. So when we talk about, we've got 9 different what you would call senses, and the 4 higher senses. So you've got your 5 physical senses, understood, and then the 4 higher senses, which is psychometry, object reading, understand, clairvoyance, which is interdimensional, CBNC is dimensionally. We've got intuition, quick perception of truth, and then we have telepathy, which is mind-to-mind communication. So each one of those would need a medium or mechanism in order to travel, isn't it? So thought, for example, in order for thoughts to travel from one location to the next, or to be sent from one person to another, would require or transition or fly through mental ether. Understood? So it needs a mechanism. It's still something there, as you say. Air is one for sound. And I think in the previous couple of classes, it was stated in emotional energy as conveyed to us by the incarnated master, Paa B'ah Yaanuwn, that the Nawapian or the Sabaean, the black person today, is analogous, to the way air is the carrier of sound. And this is a serious statement. So it's saying to us that we, as a people, are also carriers of energy. The issue in today's time is that we carry too much negative energy, rumors, conjecture, speculation, and don't use those magical powers for the good, because our vibrational rate is very negative. Can't do this, that, so on, victim, this, that, so on and so forth, as opposed to a more positive mental attitude. So we could carry a lot more things around. Yes, the way air carries sound in a much more positive frequency to boost all of us up. So we have those abilities, etc., which so hopefully we'll get to talk about that a little bit more. So, sorry, any questions?
No questions.
No, and even the chat or thing. Okay. All right. So form down. So these different levels of ethers, as I say, when they're stepped down into the human body, they form the following. So formed on higher planes, 260, step down to become your intuition and the intuition of a human being. And the intuition of human being stepped down into his consciousness and became his character and his soul. So let's look at ultra gaseous matter. So it says 264, ultra gaseous matter ether. 267 is the most dense. So dense is also, I suppose, slower in vibration. So we talked about this in a previous thing. You think about stillness. Out of stillness came motion, but that motion clearly is going to be the fastest sort of vibrational rates. And then as things start to grow or evolve, then those ether vibrational rates are going to slow down. So we find ourselves that the closer we are to the physical realm or plane, being the most dense form of vibration and slowest, we see that, that would be the case. So the further we are to that, the more dense or slower the vibrational rates are. So ultra gaseous matter ether is the most dense, 265 most dense, 266 and the lowest of all the four ethers of the physical planes. What are they? Ultra gaseous matter, mental ether, obviously light ether, and there's obviously the fourth one is life force ether. Yeah. So ultra gaseous 267, ultra gaseous matter ether 268 is the channel for all physical forces which you are familiar with, like what? Heat 269, heat 270, sound 271, light 272, motion 273, ultraviolet rays 274, cosmic rays 275. This ether subplane of the physical 276 manifests aspects which operate in human beings under the direction of his conscious mind. So motion and movement of various different types of energy within the physical plane is by way of ultra gaseous matter ether. Yeah, so that is the medium or mechanism by which certain things are able to travel. 276 manifests itself, operates under the direction of his conscious mind within the physical form. So here we get a change and we get external so physiological etheric response versus, this was elemental etheric response, and now we're going to discuss the physiological etheric response. Athar, ahah. So within the physical form, 277, 278, the ultra gaseous matter known as ether is operating under the law of attraction. 279, and it draws the physical form 280 from the needed elements in surrounding space, 281, and it makes them absorb to be utilized in the physical form. The ultra gaseous matter ether 282, 283, under the law of repulsion, 284, expels from the physical form, 285, all the materials that are no longer useful to its maintenance, 286. This is all accomplished under the direction of the subconscious mind. So here, obviously, we understand, isn't it? We've got two different nervous systems operating within the human body, isn't it? A central cerebrospinal nervous system, which is one. So we're talking about the voluntary systems, which is obviously under direction of the conscious mind, and we've got our involuntary systems, which are under the direction of the subconscious mind. So we've got our cerebrospinal nervous system, and we've got our sympathetic nervous system. You understand? Now, obviously, in religion, this became the good and bad angel sitting on the left and right shoulders, so to speak, or right and left shoulders, if good and bad, So it's whispering into somebody's ears. And then some of the myths around, as I say, or symbolic legends, you understand, of obviously the fight for, you understand, will inside human beings, you understand, so Horus and Set, Enki and Nil, you understand, the various different things, obviously, which is the battle, as I say, between of will within the human being. You understand? So here you see things being attracted around, drawn in, and then things being repelled, understood, under the rules of natural nature and the characteristics of ultra gaseous matter ether as it works in the human body. You understand? Now, obviously, part of that as well is related to your endocrinal glandular system, understood, which is drawing in energy from outside, understood, and allowing the production of hormones to drive all of these activities forward in the human body in one aspect, but also this is also being done under the direction of the mental, because you are connected to the etheric realm as you would have it to be, as well as obviously in tune with the physical realm. So you're both, you understand, at the same time, which is one of the things that renders us an etheric being because of that communication. So ultra gaseous matter ether, as you see, has a number of different, so this is natural ether energy now in this environment, having, as I say, a very specific set of functions elementally, outside, externally to us as we would see it, and then within the human body, as I say, has a different function, obviously a very important function, but a different function to one outside of itself. So these are the two things that one has to be conscious of. So within the Sabaic language, when you're seeing the term achach being used, you should know that it's dealing with the physiology of in our case, the human body. And when you see the word athar being used, then that's dealing with elemental ether, you understand, in this environment. Okay, so next one is life force ether. Let me move forward. So next one is life force ether. Let me just go forward and see if we've got it on a separate page. Okay, so maybe I wasn't going to focus on life force. So we'll come back to it if needed, if necessary. So there are many different types of ether. I think we're just honing in on a few today. So if you want to know more about that, obviously you've got the reference there to go into that in some detail. So let's look at liquid ether. So yeah, we are covering life force in this. So tablet 4, chapter 7, tablet 4, excuse me, that previous one must have been tablet 3 that we was in, not tablet 4, so I made reference earlier. So the tablet 4 ether, it says low, the ultra gaseous matter ether in physical form is associated with the solids of the body and such as the structure of the body. 4, life force ether, which is etheric form, is involved in the fluids of the body called liquid ether. 6, such as the bloodstream. 7, the excretions of the ovaries and testes. 8, the spirit in the blood. The blood is liquid. 9, and the spirit acts as it sparks that ignites the life in the blood. 10, the life produces a light which appears as an auratic shell. So obviously we understand, and for more information, I would say go to the breath class on our YouTube channel, or seek out the breath scroll to understand that, excuse me, that the blood obviously is carrying oxygen, and as I say, a chemical burning process takes place, as I say, within the lungs of the body, because blood starts off blue, it then becomes in-housed with oxygen, which is stored in the hemoglobin, travels around the body, picking up all the waste materials, so on and so forth, and then turns from a blue color. When it was blue, hemoglobin makes it red when it's carrying the oxygen. It turns into this kind of dull, you understand, dull reddish color, and then when it goes back through, as traveling in various different parts of the body, dropping off oxygen and then picking up all the kind of waste materials, it goes back through the lungs. And in the case of our cells as Nagara or Negroids, a burning process takes place, a chemical burning process takes place within the lungs. Not well described in modern biology, maybe as the usual things because of racism. They don't want to highlight the fact of the various differences between the races, but we are burning black. So that is that burning process which is fired and driven by the breath, which is why you have these big noses. Our race, or Nagara race, has big noses, big nostrils, wide noses, to be able to take in, and thick lips, to be able to take in this air in the same, be much more efficacious or efficient with the breathing process in order to fire up, as I say, that physical soul, which is referred to in Sabbatic as the Rawuh, the Rawuh soul, as opposed to the Ba'ah soul being fired up by the breath. Understand? So that burning sun, just like this planet has a number of different, how would you describe it, spheres, that helps to shield us from the harmful UV rays of the sun. But the sun itself has a corona, interesting enough, and various different stages itself of burning process, which produces what would be described as an aura around itself. And we have the same. Now, our aura obviously can extend 10 to 12 feet outside of the human body. So the human body has its own atmosphere, you understand? So obviously, clearly, a part of that is being fueled by the burning process that's taking place in your system. Hence, you are burning black. It's not just melanin. It is the whole breathing process that is helping to fuel that, and our ability to process those various different types of ether elements within that that produces that reaction. This is why when a person dies, they stop breathing. What happens to the color of the body? Okay, so if we're talking nonsense or it's not factual, well, put a plaster around your finger and tie it tightly. Leave it there for a few minutes and then see what color your finger is. If, as I say, what we're saying is nonsense, what the master teacher is saying is nonsense. So what they teach is one thing, and then what is the actual facts is another thing. So we see here, life produces light in auratic shell. 11, it in-houses the soul, so which is the light messenger. So when we're breathing in, we're taking in not only oxygen, but there's obviously a vitality in the air. The Hindus refer to it as prana. In the Sabbatic language, they refer to it as saham, which I think translates as power. And so there's a vitality in the air, which is often not spoken about, which we obviously we process those particles. Now, interestingly enough, a little bit separate to this, those nakatat, or those black dots, remember those smallest parts of, smallest particles of, that can be considered to be particles within existence. Yes, they can't be seen by the physical human eye. So it could be seen in a dream or enhanced etheric state induced by chanting or certain types of drug intake, they could be seen. But on the physical, we can't see them with our physical eyes. However, they can be ingested, they can be smelt, they can be tasted. You understand? They can be perceived in that sense, but not with the individual's eyes. Understood? So there are things within the atmosphere that one cannot see, but obviously have an impact on the human body. Let's say this vitality in the air that we're making reference to is one of those. Now, it's saying here, this messenger transports information to the conscious and subconscious mind. So, so an aspect of these black dots play a role in that, which we'll get into that a bit later. I mean, we did touch upon it. I'll show some diagrams of that last week. We talk about aspects of neurology and synaptic communications, these sparks of electricity that move between synapses, which is, say, form neural pathways. Now, the sparks of life trigger the mind that pulls itself from the mental reservoir of intellect. We know that the Ka'ah, the Absurd, is responsible for the drawing down, let's say, of the mental into the individual person's mind, in-housed, obviously, in the brain. Now, reservoir of intellect, 14, which is governed by the oversoul that is connected to the etheric cord. All messages in light forms travel through the cords from the mental reservoir. 16, Etherians are the guardians of this reservoir of intellect called Akasha. 17, each being receives light messages in their DNAs and RNAs from and through these beings that are responsible for triggering each moment of thought action in their existence. So a harmonious flow of energy and life in the form of light messages must travel to each being, rendering each being's inner self etheric. So this is what renders us etheric beings, for the fact, obviously, that we have that etheric aspect of ourselves, and there is a continual, as I say, flow of outformation coming to us in the form of information that we are processing. As I say, you have a conscious aspect to your body where you can move, obviously, your hands. I'm speaking right now, I'm doing that consciously, and obviously you've got trillions of transactions, so to speak, interactions which are taking place within the body, which is being controlled etherically. So it's still you controlling it, but it's your subconscious mind that's controlling, not your conscious. You'd obviously be dead if you had to consciously make all the necessary decisions and interactions that take place within the human body. So any questions before I move on to another aspect of light ether?
No.
You still there? I think I had no questions.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can now, yeah.
Right. There are no questions, but while you're speaking, there's what I would describe as a regular. You've got your sound is excellent, but it alternates between very good and then what somebody described in the chat as a noise bubbles. It's sort of on top of your audio, and it just switches between the two while you're speaking. I don't think it's anything you're doing, but it does appear it is interfering with what you're saying. Sometimes I can't make out what you're saying.
All right, let me try something else. I don't know if that's any better.
We'll give it a go. I can hear you fine now.
Okay. All right. You'll have to let me know. If not, I'll have to switch to the lesser mic, so to speak. The tube one. See if that works any better. Okay. So light ether. Let's move through these a bit quicker. So light ether. 303. Light ether is a tunnel from which light penetrates. From which light from the plane of force penetrates. 304 spreads and intermingles within the physical plane. 305 light blinds human beings' emotional nature. 306 which is to the emotional center in his physical body, which is located in the solar plexus. 307 the solar plexus is 6.5 to 7 inches above the navel or umbilical seat, as the crimson crown stands 6.5 to 7 inches high. So this is a particular order that wears a crown. The ancient mystic order Melchizedek wore a crown of a similar height to symbolize, as I say, this that relationship. So, or correlation. 308 the emotional center superimposes the solar plexus area. 309 the lobe of light ether is always in perpetual motion in the sand. So this is I suppose within the body, again, to allow some aspects of light to move and transform from one place to another. We see it again being expressed within the human body out of the solar plexus, where we have obviously a secondary brain also as well, referred to as the abdominal brain. So we have two brains there in terms of driving that side of things. Understood? Our solar plexus obviously is lit. The Mokasu's solar plexus is not lit, being referred to as a lunar plexus. So mental ether on the same page. Let's see what its additional characteristics has within the human body. So 310, mental ether forms a bridge between the brain structure of the physical form and the mental body of the physical individual. This mental ether is distributed throughout the brain centers. 313, and throughout the cerebrospinal nervous system. 314, which produces mental waves throughout the atmosphere. 315, it is by these mental waves that your thought processes function. 316, and it is because of this mental ether that thoughts are seen. 317, the true light reflecting your every thought. The mental ether is the channel for the transmission of thoughts, which we touched upon earlier. 319, from one individual to another. 320, a form called telepathy or teletahite. Understood? Yeah, those Tahites being the original people of the planet Earth, Ptah, where they get the English word Peter from. Yeah, Ptah, and that is the Sands people. 321, which will become increasingly responsive in these last days, so something that's going to heighten. 322, in the physical form, the heart is a great center station of life's activities. When the heart fails to pulsate, the body is dead. 324, the bloodstream carries life throughout the channels of the body. 325, being sent there not alone. 326, but by the pumping action of the heart. Yeah, pumping action of the heart. And also by the law of magnetic attraction. Understood? So there we get a breakdown of mental ether, as we touched upon earlier. Okay, so life force ether. Yeah, so another different type of ether, and again, it has characteristics in and outside of the human body. 287. Yeah, the life force ether, the source of vitality and life for all forms of the mental plane, and the mental plane is interwoven into the spiritual plane. So we know spiritual plane, you have to give it numbers at 3, mental plane at 4, and then plane of force at 2. plane of force at 2. Yeah, so which is interwoven into the plane of force, which is interwoven helix into the physical. Yeah, so it's not, I wouldn't say planes, they're not one above another, but rather, as I say, intermeshed within each other. And as we expressed, I think in part 1 of this class, there's a lot of space in space for things to move around each other or things to coexist alongside each other. So they're not, obviously when you draw them on a sheet, it looks like one above the other, but it's not supposed to be seen like that. They are finely, as I say, interconnected with each other, and that's the best way to see it, or interwoven, as they use the word there. 289. It is a manifestation of your reproductive organs. So this is life force ether. So one of the things that you may be better to understand is that we did touch upon this last month. We talked about these nakutat, or these black dots, is that this process where this ether is then melting or evolving into, I say, different forms. So these black dots, I think we touched upon last week, are melting down. And so they're black dots of particles, but they're melting down into different forms, or you may say evolving, but melted down or liquefying into different forms. And they go on then to form some of the physical aspects or organs within the body, or different types of some things, you understand, which then in this particular case that they go on to form the brain and brain ether. Understood? So ether in its in the world of things produces things, but then can go on to produce some things, and some of those things can be organs, all originating from that original ether. So here you're seeing that life force ether. You see the manifestation, obviously, so it's physical aspect of it, obviously producing organs, but then those organs produce types of liquid ether. Understood? So they're producing ether as well, if you understand. Yeah. So 289, it is a manifestation of your reproductive organs gathered in the Capri old school. Some titles there. 290, and all of your seed after you. Again, so this is a medium to allow life to transition. 91, it operates in the female part of you, Cadman, and in all her functions of reproduction, and from the moment of conception of the cable from you, you became a man and woman. 295, and the reflection of a man, which is your real self symbol of the Tubal Cain, or simply Tubal Cain, son of Zila, meaning the shadow. Out of the shadows of ignorance do we build with bronze and iron. So some of you may be like, well, what the hell is he talking about there? Well, obviously for those of you who are master builders, you understand, will understand the term Tubal Cain. Now, obviously, when you're looking at the symbology, for example, in masonry, and masonry has been associated with devil worship because of the infiltration of the brotherhood by forces of the blinding light of the Illuminati, by way of particularly by the order of the Albert Pike and others. But as I say, getting caught up in the European version of those brotherhoods may cause you to be ignorant, and it is ignorant, to ignore actually the origins of where that brotherhood started from, all the way back into ancient Egypt. Now, we've broken down, I think, some of the symbolism of that, but when you look at the symbolism, for example, of the compass and the square in Masonry, and in Europe, they put a G. In some of the European Masonic orders, they put a G in the center. That G is responsible or denotes genes, genitalia, etc. And obviously the compass and the square symbolizes, and the way they're overlaid with each other is symbolic, isn't it, of the man and woman coming together, the woman being the representing the circle and the man representing the square, both of them 360 but both equal in degrees, although in degrees in actuality, chromosomally at least, the woman is greater, having as I say 2x chromosomes versus the males X and Y, which is lesser. But no doubt if you look at the symbolism of that, it is again the production of, it alludes to the reproductive process of a man and woman coming together, let's say, which produces children. Understood. So 296, the life force ether attracts from the elements around her, 297, which enables the growth of the new body in her being, 298. Not out as you did her, Cadman. 299, she'll be the mother of all living, Nakabo, which is what that word means. 300, the life force ether also manifests activity in producing semen in the male. 301, the spark of life. 302, be it male or female, it comes from your likeness to the Anunnaki, most glorious and exalted ones, the benevolent ones. So if we upgrade that to today's terminology, I should say, then obviously that spark of life is coming from those Etherians, which obviously we are a part of, and the spark of life, as I say, necessary in the semen, which obviously alludes to the fact that each one of us, if we came through properly in the correct form through this natural process, would inherit or would have gone and been anointed to some degree as a sperm transforms itself physically and becomes etheric, and then touches upon or houses the start of life by, let's say, making its way to the molar chakra, where it where it receives, let's say, that spark, and then comes down and actually is the one that makes it to the actual egg out of obviously the multiple millions of sperm that get released within an ejaculation. Obviously, if somebody gets through in vitro fertilization or some kind of test tube situation, and the scientist picks a sperm that happens, clearly through at least that process or whatever, that spark of life is not going to happen through nature. And obviously they haven't got the technology, I suppose, to be able to detect which one of the sperm or replicate that process of it receiving that spark, or some refer to it as the start of life, in order to facilitate the fertilization and the coming through, at least, of that new soul being born. Any questions?
There's a question here from Judith, and she says, if possible, make the book pages bigger.
Okay, no problem. Okay, right, we're actually off of that section, so I know it's not as clear. So yeah.
And we still have some of those undesirable artifacts superimposed on your audio still. It's not there all the time, but it's sort of intermittent.
What's causing that? What I might do is switch microphones.
It really doesn't sound like a microphone issue, because your audio is very clear, even with the artifacts there. The tone and the quality of your audio coming from the microphone sounds consistent, but we've got these artifacts that are on top of it.
Right, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Is that different? Any better?
It's different. I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. It's not as trebly as the other one, but I can hear you.
Is that better or worse?
I would say it's not as clear as the other one, but I can hear your dialogue quite clearly.
Okay, no problem. Let's push through. Not sure what's going on in the background here. Right, okay. So it seems there's a question there.
Yes, it says, thank you, better sound. May have been contaction. I don't know what that is. I don't know what contaction is. That's a new one.
Okay, no probs, no probs. All right, we'll pressure through. I'm not sure what's going on. We'll have to. My apologies. We'll have to fix it, maybe offline or something. I'm not sure what's going on. This end, but please continue to feedback. So we'll just do our best to try and fix the issue. Right. Okay. So we've got. We're just going through different types. Either there's multiple ones, but we're just giving you obviously a flavour. So here you see Pa Nasur Achach, the helping ether, and so you see the definition there says the sun's rays, sunshine is the physical life and light of the physical world. Now, some people might be saying, well, hold on a minute, you just said Achach relates to the physiology and Athar relates to the elemental side, so external. However, obviously one understands that we are the children of the sun. So by it referring to it as helper ether, that must mean that we also exhibit those similar or same characteristics. Remember, the sun itself is described as or defined as a planet with brains and a blood system. Understood? And so it gave birth to Paa Pau'ut, i.e. the planet Earth, and it gave birth to us also. And we have, as we just read about in chapter 4, and we're dealing with chapter 7, of the Holy Tablets, when we're dealing with light ether and our solar plexus, that is one of our suns that we in-house, understood? And so it is emitting or receiving or processing a certain type of ether that allows the conveyance of physical life as we know it today, as well as light, providing the light energy, at least for this world, for what we're calling daylight. Now, it's not very clear in these pictures. I think we've shown in previous classes similar ones, but obviously that ether you can see is being conveyed in by way of the hands on the end. So it's like a clasped hand that you also see on the Ka'ah symbol, understood? If you see that, which is kind of two hands in the raised almost, as you see. What you see is that kind of stereotypical Egyptian, the Egyptian dance with stereotypical, but you see that the hands are open palms, correct? So that's showing, I suppose, showing energy being pushed upwards, whereas I suppose here that's more of a receiving position in that regard. So, but nonetheless, because it's emanating, it's obviously giving out some form of life-giving properties. Some of those hands are just hands, and some of those, as you well know, are carrying unks. So obviously there is cosmic energy that's being conveyed, which is being received, And unfortunately, our ignorance means that we're maybe not aware or not processing all of it in the way that we should be. And also you've got obviously life-giving, which is the ankh, which symbolically they refer to as the key of life, and that is holding obviously the circular part is the womb and the downward part represents the phallus. So that's those seeds of life is what you're categorizing, or the receiving of that is helper ether. So it's helping to facilitate growth, understood, and creation in terms of the life journey, which is in fact one of the definitions of Wu-Sabat, or the old school word Nuwabu. Now, in conjunction, we have another type of ether referred to as head ether, as is the reason and the mental and spiritual light of the physical world. So again, when you say reason, when we say reason, we use it as a word, but it's oftentimes perceived, I suppose, as intangible. So we understand what it kind of means in English. I suppose what we're not necessarily defining correctly is that it in its own self is a thing. So something is driving a set of actions. So remember in previous classes we said that the Sabaean or Musbatu or the Nagaru, the elevated or elevating Nagaru in this day and time on Negroid, is interested not in cause and effect, but rather the cause and effect. So in this case, when we're talking about reason, we are making reference to the forces that drive that. You understand? Reason is a thing. Something is driving that, i.e. brain etheric waves, you understand, which are or brain ether, or brain natural ether energy, which is driving that. So it's a reason is cause. It's moving things forward. It's driving growth. Understood? You understand? So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about head ether. So maybe to encapsulate and make it simple, so it's not as confusing as it may appear to be on the surface. We are talking about the journey of how things come into existence, yes, to become what they're supposed, and how they fulfill this journey of becoming into what they're supposed to be. Yes, and that starts all the way out, or started, you understand, with an ED at the end. That started, understand, but started, we would infer it to mean past, as opposed to it inferring that it to mean origin. Yes? So when you say started, you might say that part, but it should really, in our mind and our thinking, it should mean origin. Yeah, and even I use the word start even loosely, but origin is a better word. Where did the growth commence from? Out of that state of stillness, as we would have it or describe it, for best understanding. Now, so the two work in combination with each other. So we have our helping ether and head ether. And here, as I say, the bringing together, it alludes now to our key and very important role, which is why I think the question was asked. It was a very good question, I think, asked in the last class about who do we worship, etc., etc. But part of the problem with that, and why it had to be addressed in that particular way, and why we found ourselves under the spell for so long, is that this form of worshipping some unseen supreme force or supreme being, yet unproven, yet to some degree undefined, because when you say our Father who art in heaven, well, okay, what is heaven? What is its composition? What is its location? If our Father who art in heaven is sitting on a throne, then what form is he in? Is he in a physical form that he has a buttocks and that he needs a seat? If he spoke the first word, which was let there be light, then what was the sound that was made and how was that sound produced? Because in order for sound to be produced, a person or individual needs a voice box. Understood? What was the atmospheric composition that was there when the word was said? Because if it was in space, for example, where there's no atmosphere, that word could not be heard because there's no sound, there's no air, to carry that sound to the ears of people who would hear it. So these are questions, these are things that have to be defined. And people say, well, that's blasphemy. Well, I'm sorry, it's not blasphemy if I'm questioning what the white man gave me under extreme circumstances, because that's how it was given to us. Keep it 100% real. It was given to us under extreme circumstances. Yes, here, while we've given you independence, but we've caused situations or wars that resulted you being starved or in starving circumstances, or we've made you sick, and then we come along and bring you the various medicine that you need, even though another group of our people caused that situation in the first place. But here's the medicine that you need because you're sick. And by the way, we're going to give you the Bible at the same time. Here's the food that you need. And by the way, whilst you're hungry, we're going to give you this Bible at the same time. Ignore all of the 1,000 years of ancestral traditions that you had prior to us arriving. Understood? We're going to civilize you and make you correlate to our vibration. And if you don't correlate to our vibration of thinking, we got names for you like cult, etc. And if you persist in advancing your cult-like theories, then we will destroy you, and nobody's going to bat an eyelid because these cults, as I say, speak against a god or an Allah or things. So anything that happens to them is fully 100% justified. This is how they think. And it's unnatural, as I say, for one race to emulate the vibration of another race. Yeah, under the rules of natural nature. So in the worship situation, we're diminishing our own powers and avoiding responsibility or the ability to respond. So niggers, excuse my French, are constantly looking for ways to avoid responsibility. Yeah, that's why the spell has got us. Constantly looking for ways to avoid responsibility. How about you're that God? And if you're that God, then what is your responsibility to the rest of the world or the conditions of the world as we find them in? It's easy to put it out there and blame the devil or blame, you understand, somebody else, or blame what's our role in this to fix the situation. Or do we care enough to fix the situation? Or do we care enough to develop ourselves to become the solution or answers or answers to the problems of this world and not leave it to elsewhere? Because as long as we're looking at somebody else to solve the problem, then we're ignoring our own abilities and faculties. You understand? Not as an individual, but as a collective. The problem always seems immeasurable, sometimes as an individual, but obviously our collective power might give you a window or vision into how we might solve a problem. At least that's how it starts. You understand? And even if it doesn't get completed in our lifetime, it's important that the process is commenced as nature is seeking to drive that process. So we've got two different types of ether, helping and head. Let's see what it says. It says, you Nagaru Negroes by nature has grown on the best and richest part of the planet, Afaf Reye Ka'a, Africa, yeah, the sun-drenched part. So the reality is that we were supposed to be rich. So poor righteous teacher, that's not knocking those who may seek to diminish their interest, let's say, in the nicer things in life, so to speak, because desire, yes, it does lead to suffering. But at the same time, obviously, our ancestors didn't intend by design for us to be poor, because they left us on the best part of the planet. So obviously, as the master teacher said, it must have been stolen from us. And today, with a certain type of mindset that was, say, put upon us by the spell, and then enhanced through the forced kidnapping and enforced interception, rape of our ancestors, produced, as I say, in the last 400 years, a new type of individual referred to as the Negro. And over the last 400 years, and obviously the incoming of the sun cycle in 1970, and the coming of the Amun Nabab with the right knowledge, right wisdom, right understanding, leading to right overstanding and sound right reasoning, obviously also gave birth to a new being or Nubian, and this mixed individual that, however, that would now have the mind to align itself with its ancient ancestors understood, thus giving birth to a new mindset, a new set of beings, or at least the start of that, to reverse, as I say, what had been done by the spell of sleep. So we see here that we're on the best part of the planet. For you to become helping ether and head ether. So the emanation of what we were just reading, the part or the point or the individuals that are to be generating this, understood? Yes, the sun as our etheric ancestor. So when we think of Paa Pau'ut, we think of the sons, and if we are their children, we touched upon this last time, that as children, what is it talking about? How is it defining that? So as their children, in this instance, it's displaying the various different characteristics of that we have the same attributes. Yeah, obviously, clearly they are responsible for our birth, but it was obviously through a process of seeding, not through the coming together of male and female in this physical sense. But obviously we have the attributes and their characteristics, the correlation. We're representing that being, that Ethereum, obviously here on the planet Earth, and therefore emanate what is being described as this helping ether, head ether, and other types of ether, as I say, are emanating from us, also having the ability, as I say, to bring absolute matter and absolute space into correlation with each other to draw down, understood, those black dots to enable black magic, understood, to be created, or magical things, understood, to arise as a result of bringing together that correlation. And when religion makes us as this lowly man or lowly woman, do you understand, who's constantly sinning, constantly doing the wrong thing, even though, according to their story, you were the ones that created this nature, you understand, of these individuals, well, it caused you to diminish your own abilities, understood, and diminish even our abilities to produce, as I say, ourselves or develop ourselves spiritually, etherically, so on and so forth, to play our role in maintaining existence, as which is the role of our higher ancestor Paa Pau'ut on obviously a much more global, so universal or omniversal scale. Bear with me 1 second. Right. So it says, for us to become, as I say, helper ether and head ether. For all others, you are the gods of the Kawak Taha, planet Earth, Muachach Ethereans. Understood. So this is combination of that. We'll explore that a bit further in a couple more slides. So, universal ether. So, what is universal ether? Let's just get this nice. Okay. So, universal ether. Universe is all ether produced. Is all ether produce universal orbs, spirit lights of fire, and these are the sparks of brain synapse, or the Shara spark. Understood? So that's one. So when we see synaptic sparks, remember this is the melting down of these nakatat, or these khamem nakatat, these black dots, understood, which, as I say, start to melt down from those smallest particles and then obviously be utilized by obviously ourselves in this regard. And it's obviously the starting point or the forming of different neural pathways through what is being described as neuroplasticity. Understood? So obviously neuro is dealing with it's dealing with nerves or the nervous system, and then plasticity, it really, from an etymological point of view, it means to mold. Yeah, so this is, I suppose, the molding of the brain or the nervous system, which the brain obviously controls consciously and subconsciously, and this is the formulation, I suppose, through repetition or reiteration of, as I say, new ways of doing things, a new type of approach, a complete remolding of individual by way of new outformation in our own case, and then coming in the form of new information, giving a new mindset. And then obviously the most important part of it is not just the thinking, I suppose, it's the actual application of it that can lead to permanent behavioral change, which, as I say, can affect not only your internal environment in terms of those decisions, but externally, those environments with development, of new skills and abilities. Understood? So, as one may say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, we're not dogs, so therefore it doesn't matter what age you are. You understand? If you're blessed to have a functioning brain and physiology, then you should never stop learning. Now, other understanding of universal ether, it says universal ether is a combination of all elements and all kinds of matter that can become energy at any given point in this dawar cycle of time and space. Understood? So we have two main, not the only one, two main sources, don't we, of universal ether in existence, which is 9 ether, understood, which you're dealing with, could be is positive, you understand, facilitates growth, life, so on and so forth, versus 6 ether, which is the opposite, you understand, which is obviously decay, destruction, in that regard. So 9 obviously represents mind, 6 represents sex, but 9 sex will be love, whereas 6 sex would represent lust. So you've got two main kind of forces within the universe, which is, as I say, those two main sources when we're dealing with the ontological aspect of ether within this, as I say, physical universe, within our universe. And as I say, you can see there it's dealing with matter and its ability to become, or its expression as energy within this, as I say, space, time, and cycle. As we know, the SMAT circle, space, matter, and time circle, deals with obviously the transition or journey of universal ether. So again, something that we need to understand and be cognizant or conscious of. So natural ether, we can see, is another type of ether. So natural ether is universal energy meaning it exists everywhere, either in potential of active form. I don't know what that says there. There is potential or spirit and active or, excuse me, there is the potential or spirit and active or physical body. 110, it is the blood and mind of the universal energy that pervades, be present and apparent throughout. That's not making sense. Let's read that proper. Bear with me 1 second. Typed out correctly. Right, 109. Natural ether is universal energy, meaning it exists everywhere, either in potential or active form. Yeah, that is potential or spirit and active or physical body. 110. It is the blood and the mind of the universal energy that pervades, be it present and apparent throughout all. 111. Natural ether is the physical light and life, spark of life, electrobiochemistry, and biology. So here, as I say, we're seeing another form of energy, and it's being called universal energy because it exists everywhere, as opposed to it being universal ether. Understood? But we can see here that, again, like blood and mind, so we have to think of it in the context for our understanding when we apply it to the human body, that what is blood doing? Well, blood is transferring various different nutrients of life around the human body, i.e. oxygen, to the various different parts, and obviously taking away the waste materials as well, so it doesn't so the body can sustain itself. It's not being poisoned by materials which are byproducts of life or burning process or the consumption, as I say, of nutrients, so on and so forth. So it brings life but also takes away. So we've got that in-housing or attraction of life. And then we've got the law of expulsion, which we read about earlier, to move those waste products away. So it provides this function in terms of blood. And mental, what is the driver? What is driving all this energy to move in a certain direction, to become? What's driving that? So what's driving that, obviously, is that mental aspect of this. Understand? Yeah. So that something's driving it, all this forward. Understood? And this is obviously being done with the mind. So the natural ether obviously is carrying these particular characteristics, and as you see, they're being defined, at least how we can see it, as the physical light, life, spark of life, and electrobiochemistry and biology. So as obviously human beings, we are, as I say, we are electrobiological because our systems work not only obviously off of the breath and a burning process, but clearly when we talk about synapses, sparks, so on and so forth, this is because as a being we are generating, or our body is generating, electrical energy also. Understood? And obviously that forms the electrical not only generation, forms obviously the ability for the brain to communicate with various different aspects, all aspects, of the human body function, awareness, so on and so forth, in that regard. Now, interesting enough, in fact, we'll leave that for now. So 151, natural ether is Paa B'ah, the soul, the life force of the Wahu Makwan universe, and the Nagar person and things therein. 152, by the rules and cycles of natural nature, natural nature. Ether performs point spontaneously and is indeed efficacious. That means natural ether as blackness and the black dot, it works automatically and is able to balance all nature by the removal of chaotic light. 153. Supreme balance, blackness is able to do what must be done and can do with perfection. So obviously when you see the word perfection there, Tatmun is a Sabaic word. Obviously, you're moving towards that state. And obviously this natural ether energy provides that balance. So as I say, when we talked about it acting as that, if you think about it in correlation to the human body, we can see those characteristics there in the nature of what that it was in the blood. In the case of blood, you understand what it performs, and in the case of mind or in the body, what that performs. You understand, because obviously without those various different electrical impulses, there is no life, communication, interaction, so on and so forth as we know it. But that light doesn't originate in the human body. It is outside of it, just happens it's being processed and obviously being directed there by the brain. So we see the characteristics here, it having the qualities, efficacious, having those qualities to indeed do that balancing work throughout the universe. So we understand it to be the function of the soul. That soul, as we touched upon, I think in several classes ago, is a projection of the mental downwards, that when it's seen on the lower planes, it is interpreted as the soul. But sitting behind, the driving force behind it is the mental. It is an aspect of the individual's mind being projected down as the other soul that we have, as a verse to the Rauch, which is dealing with the breath, and the soul, which is the emotional center or emotional aspect. It's the emotional body, understand, in that regard. So this is natural ether. Yeah. And so, interesting term, ether negrogenesis, that we talked about earlier, about this rewiring of the brain based upon this new cycle coming in, driven by the incarnated master, this Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, in the form of Paa Pau'ut Yaanuwn, known as Dr. Malachi Z. York. This new cycle information, outformation, comes to us in the formation, is driving a regrowth process, a transformational process. Yeah, as we said earlier, outformation, is being used to inform us, but in order to get from what outformation is seeking to provide, we have to be transformed. So remember, outform, yes, inform, and then transform. Yeah, so they're all dealing with form. Yeah, and endocrinal, as we've alluded to previously, it links phonetically to the word indoctrinate. So the word doctrine and docrinal, as in endocrinal, and doctrine, it means that what you take in as information shapes your being, has a direct impact on how you think, how you see the world, but also physiologically has an impact. Understand? Because when you take that information and what is it really? It's tones, it's language, there's energy sitting behind those sounds and how it can impact and affect people in different ways. Understood? Yeah, negative language, positive language, how you interpret it, what your brain understands the meaning of those things to be, has power. Yeah, and somebody took control of the word or words that were being conveyed. Understood? So there's clearly an important difference between lies and truth, and even facts. They have a different impact, understood, on our physiology. So part of the transformation and part of part of the transformation and part of what is taking place is, as I say, is a new being being born. But then how is that being done? Well, they gave us a prolific author in this day and time, a book writer, in order to re-add that which was lost. And as I say, we don't learn Wu-Sabat, Wu-Sabat learns us. So it's about putting yourself in the position to receive the helper and the head ether that's coming from the Amun Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn in this day and time, understood, for those obviously of his kind, but for those maybe not of his kind who are willing to listen, respect, and move, you understand, from and grow and elevate. Yeah, so 6 ether or Paa Pau'ut, embracing 9 ether. There's nothing wrong with that, you understand, as opposed to 9 ether beings as Nagaru, who are will be described as regressing, in a sense, as opposed to elevating. So let's look at 148. It says 148, and it says, as natural ether, brain energy magnetically and magically comes together and unites to process into ether negrogenesis. That is growing brain cells, creating new neural pathways, and the ether mind and reason, again, is now starting to regrow by way of Wu-Sabat, growing and developing the new being or new body of your organism that the brain needs to have for survival and support, as I said, your neuroplasticity to enhance neural pathways. And you read about that, obviously, if you go all the way back, old school, in chapter 6, I think it's tablet 15, understood, where it talks about an enlarging of the electromagnetic spectrum and how us as human beings are being rewired. So remember, the master always says this continually in one of his statements, in the sense, obviously we need to turn ourselves inside out. And part of that process of turning ourselves inside out is taking control and rewiring of our brain to create new neural pathways. Not just about, as you know, if you're trying to learn a new skill, habit, you understand? I think one example is when they talk about neuroplasticity is how a person rides a bike, for example. Knowledge is one thing, but then it's the application, isn't it? It's the repetition. It's, damn, I fell, get back up again, try again. You understand? Continually improving one's technique till it becomes part of your being, isn't it? You understand? You ain't rode a bike for whatever, 20 years, but if you jump back on it, understood, it's hard kind of wired in there where you'd be able to remember, yeah, okay, ride a bike, because you've mastered it. And it sits there as a skill, like driving. Some people not driven a car for however long, understood, or different cars, you can jump in, boom, look at it, you just, okay, where's this, where's that? Boom, you're able to get the design, and then you can drive a car. You can apply the skills in multiple different ways, scenarios, driving different countries, so on and so forth. So this ability, understood, is what is being taught to you in different ways and expressed to reshape you to become, as I say, or regrow you to become that Ethereum. And so you can't just be a bookworm, understood, because you don't necessarily get the transformation with that. If you think about how your neuroplasticity works in terms of your ability and skills, you have to put it into application. You can't just be solely practical, because the necessary actions which you need, have to come with a degree of intelligence, you understand? And at the end of the day, you have to know what you're doing. So in that regard, I can plant as much seeds as I want in the ground. If I don't know the right nutrients and things to put in, to service, what time to plant, so on and so forth, I'm not going to get the desired results when I say it's not working, and I don't know how to problem solve or troubleshoot as a result. So you have to be holistic. You have to be holistic, as well as obviously putting the right stuff for your brain to function in your body, for your brain to function, because it has fuel that it needs, you understand, and what it's made of. So interesting thing about it is you're being given a methodology that at least says look things up, research, studies, so on and so forth, not just believe. And so it allows you to, as I say, absorb this and put it into practice. Because once you know, at least, one of the issues is, isn't it, that the Muadamu or the Adamites on into the Mukasu, remember that they have also they've forgotten who they are, where they came from, in terms of the origin of their spiritual story, which lends itself, as I say, to those tablets that gave birth to the Bible, Quran, so on and so forth, which are those Sumerian tablets. They've forgotten where all of that came from. They don't know the origin of those things. So if we're following after them, then we're following after somebody who's also forgotten, and therefore we've forgotten because we substituted their stuff for our own. You understand? So one of the first things is you have to become aware of the who you are, not what you have became. Yeah, and what are your skills, abilities? How do certain things work? That's why it was expressed to you, even though the master's incarcerated. One of the main things he's saying to you is get to know thyself. And know thyself meant understand how the human body works. Yes, because obviously we are a universe. And then this Wu-Sabat is teaching you what we're supposed to become, what is necessary and needed, what are the qualities, properties, so on and so forth, that are necessary for this, as I say, where the universe is changing. The planet is on its own ascension journey, referred to as a dimensional shift, happens every 24,000 years. And as a result of that, if we're aligned, then those things, as I say, what is our role in this? Well, you can see right here about this uniting or bringing together of, as I say, these two elements, absolute space and absolute material, in order to allow, as I say, natural ether energy, or at least nakut, or black dots, as I say, to produce black magical things and be attracted magnetically. This is a natural law of power. So when we're saying about magic, I'm talking about cutting heads of chickens and so on and so forth. We're talking about the in natural law and nature, how ether can be molded and to become, you understand, anything that we need it to be. You understand? Not only to sustain what's there existing, but also to produce new things. You know, nothing is beyond our mental ability and thinking. You understand? In order to take control of this power. This is what is being conveyed to us of exactly who and what we are. We are those gods that they worshipped, but the lack of confidence in ourselves and lack of confidence in our ability to solve our own problems, which is, as I say, a lot of the time, the whole society in the Western Hemisphere, in terms of vibration, energy, environment, things that we have to contend with, or allow ourselves maybe to have to contend with, are designed to keep you down, keep you from becoming, keep you from becoming what you're supposed to be, stopping this ether negrogenesis, this growth, this rewiring of the brain, being driven, as I say, by the forces of Wu-Sabat, which are feminine in nature. Any questions?
Yes, there's a question from Mia Moore. Is there any information about dew, which is spelled D-E-W, the moisture in the dark morning hours, books or scrolls?
I know of. So yeah, it's not me with that one. I don't know. Maybe somebody in the chat who maybe can help, but I'm not aware of anything that springs to mind directly in that regard. Anything else?
No, there are no further questions. There's still one or two artifacts in your audio, still same as before. So I think it's microphone independent. There's something else going on there.
Not sure. Yeah, apologies, people. I think if it's an internet issue or something, that I'm going to have to sort it out afterwards, because I'm not sure. Run through various different things. I think I did do some adjustment to my mic yesterday or something on the computer to allow a piece of software to work. So I don't know if that's the cause of it. So it's something we're going to have to root out, as I say, in the future sessions. So my apologies for that. So if there's something else I can do, by all means, I'm sort of willing to try, but we'll press on. And say apologies for the unusual quality of sound today, if that helps. Okay, right. We've got 40 minutes, so I've got to try and let me just see where we're at. Because I want to try and get through this. I might have to come back to this.
In the Babcock?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Somebody's just put a question. Due in relation to what? That's from Judith. Due in relation to what, please?
I think my understanding of it was DEW, dew, like the water that appears, I suppose, in the morning, on plants and various other different things. I suppose the morning dew, that's how I understood it. The sort of water that appears in the morning, like a form of condensation that I suppose you get on life forms. I think they were asking if there's any information in the doctrine around dew. I'm not aware of anything directly that springs to mind. But I say, if anybody else can think of something or can put something in the chat, by all means, we can read that out to help the individual concerned.
And there's another question just arrived from Den Amireye. It says, Raubat Nababkak Nihes, how does meditation affect the ether negrogenesis? Tawatak Musya.
Well, I suppose it doesn't affect it. I suppose it helps. Remember, we talked about, I think in the previous class, we talked about the power of concentration, which is a Paa in its own right. So I think the thing is, remember, there's a duality. Well, I was going to talk about it a bit later. There's a duality in things, isn't it, that we need to be mindful of, because meditation in its own right, remember, comes with prayer. And I've said this before. So it's the art of, as we've been taught, prayer is the art of talking without listening, and meditation is the art of listening without talking. So the two go hand in hand with each other. So one is supposed to pray, and chant, because it generates a certain vibration, isn't it? So there's this kind of understanding that you're praying to some supreme force or being because they are in need of it would be contradictory, because that source or force of power, if they're ultimately powerful, shouldn't be in need of human beings' prayers. So the reality is, when you really look at the true purpose of it, you're praying really to help yourself. It is a form of spiritual aerobics. And so one prays, and then they listen back. When they finish speaking and they've generated that vibration, they listen back for the voices of their ancestors to speak back to them, to convey certain messages that they may need, I suppose, for their advancement or for the assistance of others, so on and so forth. So really, one who undertakes that prayer system, the Paa Pau'ut system, or does their chanting 9, 3, and 9, I suppose will start to notice some changes, maybe in voice or alignment or certain thinking, whatever, in that regard. But if they don't do the other part, if they don't sit down in quiet contemplation after they've finished, then an aspect of that skill is lost, because the two go together. You are effectively dialing in, for lack of a better word, or you're seeking to align yourself with a certain type of frequency where this outformation is being broadcast. And so the better one gets at it, isn't it? You'd be without the glandular control of the Ba'h gland, is coming at you more intermittently. So if you're seeing it as a frequency or a vibration, you have to stay in tune with. And that's the challenge for us, particularly in the type of environments that we live in, which is why originally Tamaray was set in the country, isn't it? It was in the country area of Georgia, you understand, where there's not a lot of interference, you understand, in terms of signaling and signals and different things that can interfere with both of those skills and attributes, you understand? So they both work hand in hand with your ability to concentrate. You need to be able to concentrate, isn't it? Because when one's meditating, different thoughts or whatever are coming to your head from the day, whatever the case may be. So your ability to focus on, you know what I mean, nothingness. Because what you want to do, isn't it? You want to achieve silence, yeah? So what you're doing really, okay, I'm interconnecting with that blackness. And obviously the prayer system with the language, which is most important, is all about you talking about and saying things in the dead language of English. But if you can get the tones locked down, you understand, with your own individual tone and then the right tone in order to achieve that connection, depending on whether you're in a group or doing that individually. So if you C, you're looking at C major, isn't it? If you're doing it as an individual, because you're looking to connect with those mu'akhahu, or those etheric beings, or the cosmos. So you're looking to connect high out where the broadcast frequency of Wu-Sabat is being broadcast. And once you interact with it, then obviously you want to hear the messages that are being broadcast, because Wu-Sabat, remember, is what is driving growth, rules, putting things back into order, understood, which were previously may be chaotic. So Wu-Sabat, as the science of sound right reasoning, is driving that order. So you want to be, as you attest to in Paa Shad, well, I'm a part of this, understood, but you're not a part of it if, you understand, you don't want to be. And if you don't want to be, and how do I want to be? Well, how I do that or express want is by doing the things that are going to keep me in tune. So meditation is extremely important part of not only mental well-being and mental health, but it's part of one's spiritual development, you understand, and a part, or an essential part of concentration. So unless these things are put into practice, then obviously they're going to fall by the wayside in terms of how your brain works and creates neural pathways, understood. So you need action, you need quality, obviously, information, and you need to be under a master who knows exactly what you need to do for that to be effective for you. That doesn't mean to say that you can't look at other sources, boom, 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 and find out what's necessary and needed. But for it to align with the rules of, which is purpose, then you need to know what is the end game, understood? And that's why you need that guided help or incarnate master, which is specifically in this instance designed for our race, and I say all those who will listen. So yeah, meditation is key, but it goes hand in hand with the chanting and prayer system, hence why it is good. I'm saying you must, but it's good to keep a kind of diary note or record. Okay, on this day, you understand, these are the thoughts that came back to me, blah, 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 because I suppose as you perfect that and you're paying attention to it, you can see exactly what's going on, you understand, and develop your inner abilities as a result. And going with that, so you go prayer, meditation, drinking a sufficient amount of water is also important. And all these are forms of positive, and obviously reading. The languages helps as well in terms of that aligning yourself, and as well as all of that is forms of positive thinking. In the sense, so in the nutshell, that is what meditation is. It's a form of positive thinking. But again, you see the duality of that scenario or situation. I can't remember if we covered it in a previous class, but they talked about the duality within all, understood. And one example was given, I think, was about the clock, wasn't it? Yeah, that the fact that you have, if you look at the clock today, isn't it? It's got two 9 o'clocks. It's got two 8 o'clocks. It's got, you understand? So it's 8 in the morning, 8 in the evening, so to speak, or whatever. So there's a duality in there that has to be understood. We just talked about where the magic comes from, isn't it? About this controlling of absolute space and absolute matter. Yeah, the painter on the canvas, the black canvas, if they're painting on black or whatever canvas, they say black. Yeah, and then the paint is important, isn't that duality between the nothing and the something, and how you use the space and what goes in the space is important. But there's a third aspect which is controlling that, which is the expression, the soul, the mental aspect. Okay, let me draw the picture, you understand, or express this picture. So there's this aspect of duality there that has to be utilized and managed to facilitate what the brain, natural ether energy, but the brain ether, so that was coming through the individual's brain, or the taking of the materials and then transforming it into a form that can be utilized and used. And in that sense, this is what one is understanding, what you're practicing, understood in terms of that regard, and once practiced, or it's keeping you aligned, so that when necessary, I suppose part of your being is that maybe inadvertently you are always emanating helper ether, you are always emanating head ether, you are always contributing to the bigger picture. We're making decisions of individuals, but if the two things are aligned, then we're making decisions about what's best for the race. And then if that's really aligned, then we're really making decisions which is best for the planet, and we're making decisions which is best for the universe, and we're making decisions which are within the 9 ether or natural ether expression within all, in a sense. So we should be aligning everything, because the culture is trying to get you to do business, but it is getting you to do things where there's complete alignment. There's no contradiction in, you understand, there's no contradiction in being unnatural nature versus natural nature. You're seeking to align fully and be natural nature, because as 9 ether beings, that should be the expression, do you understand, or nature of what we're doing, you understand, in all activities, you understand, as opposed to now, it's obviously seemingly problematic, because we're living in an unnatural society that cares none or little about those things, understood, and that's why there's a level of in your own environment separation, so on and so forth, in order to get back to who and what we're supposed to be. So yeah, that is obviously a key part of that. Any other questions?
Yes, there's a question from Mia Moore. What are the daily rituals one must perform to maintain or enhance the ether energy?
Well, I suppose your connection to it may be the better way to describe it, you understand, or your relation to it. So I don't enhancing the energy. I mean, I suppose you're utilizing it better. So again, they're nothing different to. I mean, the master's obviously given the chants 9, 3, and 9. So those at those high points for the individual in their daytime. So obviously the morning chant or 9 is your waking point. That would be the Atum point, symbolically of the position of the sun as it rises in the morning. You've got the 3 o'clock, which is symbolic of I suppose high noon, or the point where the sun is highest in the sky, and that's your Atun point. And then you've got the chant before you go to bed, which is the Amun ray point as the sun appears to set. So these are certain chants which are done, and as I say, chanting, prayer, these types of things in the Sabatic language, they help to align the the endocrinal glandular system of the Sud to be able to in-house that natural ether energy in a more potent or concentrated way. So that would be the starting point, and then obviously, as I say, dietary decisions, you understand, in terms of that side of things. So proper diet, you understand, a progressive diet, plenty of water, proper rest and relaxation, so getting the right amount of sleep, and obviously in this case rewiring the brain by way of studying this doctrine, and then being able to express it in various ways of service maybe to others, which would help to develop those abilities and faculties. Any other questions?
No further questions.
Okay. In fact, what I'm doing, let me bypass this bit. If we get time, I have to go back to it because we do need to finish by 4:30, so I've got another half an hour. So what we're interested in is the symbolism. And so we're looking at some of the safaf that I think is described in natural ether energy, or the thing of safaf. And you can see here some of the symbols. So when you're looking at what may be described as our symbols, they all mean something, and you should, I suppose, as a Sabaean or as an Agaru Negroid person, you should now, I suppose, start to be showing interest in why your ancestors put things and why they did things a certain way. And it might feel to you a little bit overwhelming, or to us overwhelming at the very start of things, but the asking of the questions at least tasks the subconscious mind to start working on a solution. Do you understand? So it's more than just a nice outfit or why they've put something in this particular way, form, fashion. You know, everything has some meaning. That's how our ancestors were that specific and that detailed. So here we see, for example, the Tet or Tahat symbol. And it's got an interesting symbol in the center. So we might look at it. So we understand here hasn't got that symbol. And then this one hasn't. You understand? So the Tet, which symbolizes the blood in the human being, this is a depiction of Ashtat or Isis, as the Greeks refer to her as. And then she's holding the blood holding this Tet symbol, which is symbolic of a little person, but the blood, obviously, that's flowing throughout the human body, but it's sitting within a lotus flower. And so you can see there, well, clearly the lotus flower is a symbol of regeneration, isn't it? So what happens to a woman every month? Well, okay, she has a menstrual cycle, which in religion was seen as something unclean and dirty. In our culture, in Kadem Mahmatu, ancient Egypt, seen as a renewal process, because she's renewing. So she's extracting waste products out, but it's a renewal from a cleansing. Yeah, so you can see by what she's holding there, this is describing a renewal of life process. So once we start to understand some of this symbolism, it helps us obviously to start to look at what are the hidden mysteries or secrets that we're looking to be conveyed. Yeah, I can see a question there. Someone got a question?
Yes, there's another question here from Adorna. And the question is, how do we address our ancestors?
So there's a just bear me 1 second on. It's a good question. I suppose there's a ritual referred to as a sign of the triad, which I don't know how best to convey that. Maybe if we, I'm trying to think. What we'll do, we'll maybe put it on the Facebook page. If you come in the session, maybe if you leave an email address, we can email it to you. So it's a ritual that was conveyed by the master and done by one of the sisters, Sahamtat, which shows you basically how to greet your ancestors Very short, ritual, nothing thing, but it's to show how to greet them out of respect, as you would set up, obviously, your altar, which I can't remember. I think maybe last week we went into, or last class, went into that in more detail. But we can send that to you. It's a bit too much detail to go into for where we're at the moment. But there's a whole ritual about you connecting with the 30 people. Obviously, you make the 30th individual within your 4 generations, understood? And so there's the sign of the triad is one way which you can greet them with the appropriate level of respect in order to facilitate those discussions and make that connection now whilst you're in the physical, so that when you transition when you transition at the point of death, you've already made the connection with those ancestors. Yeah. Whilst you're in the physical, we should make that transition much easier. Any other questions?
Adorna, you have your hand raised. Would you like to ask a question? I'm going to unmute your microphone and then you can ask your question. So your mic is unmuted. You need to unmute your mic. Do you have a question, Adorna?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, yes. Okay. Sorry, it's when I asked the question and then it's as if I didn't know if you understood what the question was, and it was to say, and then I wrote the question.
We've lost you there for a second.
You know, how do we address or answer them? But you did answer. Yes.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, let's say, Dawn, if you leave an email address or something, we can, or anybody's interested.
Yes, that's fine.
Your email address will send you a link.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, we'll send you a link, and it's a short video so you can see how to do it.
Yes.
And with the proper pronunciation. But it's a mark of respect, so it enables you to do that, get you in the positive frame of mind. And then it's about you, as I say, utilizing that to make that connection with your great grandmother or grandmother or whatever. If it's
Yes.
not alive,
Yes, it's
to make that connection. Yes. So yeah, there's a proper ritual which we're happy to share. That's not a problem.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Yes, thank you.
So this is really important. What we're looking at here, yeah. So it's the power of Ramaz, which is the Sabatic word for symbol. And what we're talking about here, I'm stuttering. Let's get my words out. The ancient Egyptians, one of the things is that we have been denied the connection with them within the Western Hemisphere, because there's been a calculated effort through the monotheistic religions to make Egypt, which is in Africa, a bad place. So the fight that we have amongst our people is that we don't pay it little or no respect because of the story that's been conveyed around Moses and the Pharaoh, that the Egyptians were pagans, so on and so forth. So we have ignored the greatness of people who looked much like us, who gave birth to us, who we are their children. We have ignored a lot of the secrets and things which they've left because others wanted to convey this wicked message so that they could steal, which was our genetic inheritance, understood? And so everything your ancestors did, they was aware of the dangers of Six Ether and other forces trying to take and substitute themselves and put themselves in place of Nine Ether, because that's their nature, to subsist off of the living. Yes. But everything they did, or the style of their approach, was always around connecting or being in line with nature. When we say nature, we're really saying Natharu. When we say Natharu, our depiction of the Natharu was suns. Yeah, the suns we see placed all throughout that universal darkness. Remember, all of that is within Pau'ut, all, understood. So here is showing this, again, this duality, you understand? And as you see there, so it says, in Kadem Mahmat, ancient Egypt Tamaray, your Salafu ancestors, Musbatu Sabians, in Wu-Sabat, we use Ramaz symbol to explain an example of the Olam Sakhamat, hidden powers of visible yet invisible bara, space. Understood? So again, this duality, isn't it? Yeah, that we kind of keep expressing. There's a lot more in natural ether energy, which if you read the book, you go into it and it's you know what I mean? There's a lot more detail. But in there, remember this absolute space and absolute matter, when brought into correlation with each other, understood, yeah, produces what they call chamem magas, or black magic or black magnetic powers, understood. And the symbolism that we see of the symbol is alluding to that, isn't it? Because it's giving you a message of what it appears to be, and then there's a message of what it is not, what it appears to be. So saying one thing, but that real meaning is hidden in the blackness, understood? So we're not telling people, hey, go and worship some spook, invisible god or whatever. What it's making reference to is that there is the seen world, you've got semi-seen, and then you've got unseen. Seen, obviously, is what we're talking about here. We're in the physical world, which we can see with our physical eyes. Semi-seen is where they talk about ghosts, orbs of white light, you understand, spectres, spirits, spooks, so on and so forth, which you see associated oftentimes with death, adverse forces. And then you've got unseen, yeah, and unseen obviously for us is perceived but not seen, you understand, in that regard. So we perceive it but we're not seeing it necessarily with our physical eyes. And the allusion to that even in our own symbolism, we see in the position we just mentioned earlier about those three suns, yeah. So the sun rising one position as it appears to rise, atum point, or atum reye. So reye is sun, atum is the position. Atum reye as a sun at noon, you know, its high point or whatever, or the highest point in the sky, atum. And then the sun as it appears to set, understood, is the amun point, yeah, but it is appearing to set, yeah? And it was thought then to descend down into the sea. But the opposite of the atun point is the anun point, understood. So the three suns you can see, this is somebody, remember, who's standing on the surface of planet Earth looking upwards, yeah. So that is the illusion of it, or the symbolism of it, yeah. That sun appears to move, doesn't actually physically move, but it appears to move, yeah. So in that there's drawn symbolism, as we said earlier. It's the life journey as well, the visible life journey. But obviously, when a person retires to bed and they are sleeping, yes, they're physically they're not moving. They say sleep is is the sister to death, because you're not moving physically, you're not expressing yourself physically, but the soul or the etheric being, and it's that the soul is awake, the etheric being is awake, and the ka'a is there functioning, understood. And what it's showing you there in the darkness is that the sun, because the planet obviously is in shadow, it's facing in the opposite direction, what we call in night, which should really be shadow, the sun is still shining, but you can't see it. So it's perceived but not seen. So if you overlay the life journey, you can see, okay, well, there's not life after death insofar as if life is associated with breathing, understood, and once the breath stops, there's no more, you know what I mean, you're going to die if you're not breathing. But obviously what was there before and what was grown within the human body, there is existence after death. Yeah, form of existence after death. So these allude to certain powers, as I say, that relate to the unseen, but it's just not seen, but it's perceived. You understand? So we're perceiving it but not seeing it. You understand? And so this is what the power of symbolism is teaching you again about our relationship to nature, the natural ether energy, which is what this is all speaking about. You understand? The nothingness and the somethingness. You understand? And this duality in this regard. So, an interesting symbol, and one that in this day and time we should be able to interpret and explain exactly what's going on, because it was the Munbatu, the masters who kept the secrets of what these symbols meant, and the combination and being put together, what their meaning is. And so one of the proves that we're in with an incarnated master is that the young people, many of the young people, the Madrasu Tashrak, are being able to now, in this day and time, all of what our people gone through, being able to break down and explain these symbols and their meaning and their various different hidden meanings, are being explained now in this day and time by an incarnated master to show, you understand, not only who he is and the origin and source of these things, but obviously setting the record straight and then reconnecting us to that blackness, in the sense. So the hidden meaning behind these symbols. Any questions? So I see a few questions there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm having issues with my connections. Just a second. I'll see if I can see these questions. Here we go. Right. I can only see the chat. I can't actually see. Oh, here we go. I can. Let's see. It says no. I cannot see any questions on my screen at the moment. My internet connection disengaged. I don't see any questions at all.
Okay. Let me see if I can click on it. I'm not sure why I can't see that. What does, so one of the questions is then, Amiraye, what does the purple symbol on the Tahat or Tet mean? Going to get to that in a second. It deals with, well, let me get to that in a second so I can show you. I'll explain it. Got email address and ritual link for the ancestors WhatsApp group. Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, just someone asking us where to share the information. Okay. All right. So let's look at a few symbols just to help us out here. So they have. I suppose they have a name, the different symbols, but they also correlate to a certain type of sound. So obviously, just like how we can use letters that have a sound, it can be used obviously to put. Those combination can be used obviously to tell a certain story, or they may convey a certain principle or even a word in that regard. So in this symbol we see the new bowls, so they call it new bowls, and then sometimes when you see them in combination, like more than one, they refer to as the nun bowls. Understood? Yeah. So within that, now without going inside the bowl, you won't know the ingredients that it contains. Understood? But within the new bowls is the composition or the elemental composition that is responsible for producing life or life forces. Understood? Obviously, these are the secrets unknown, like the secrets that led to the production of the first cell. You understand? So, the cell is the singular, one of the singular most important things in all life, in a sense. As we know, certainly organic or biological life, because it all starts from that single cell, which obviously contained the necessary information or ingredients to grow into multiple different life forms. So we see this new bowl, and we see the tat symbol there, or representing that T. Now here in this instance, we're seeing so nu, and then this is representing the T sound, the ta sound, tahat sound here, and so hence we get our nut sound. This patat represents the sky, and here we see those brain nuts or nuts that we're talking about. Is those black dots. Those black dots that we're making a reference to. Now, interesting enough, in natural ether energy, you will notice that in the first verse, if you remember, yes, well, some people, if you've got the book, you will notice that the first verse is in the Sabaic language, and it's untranslated. Yeah, and just reading the last bit of it, it says, Pa Munwapu Bi Pa Nabab Yananan Afaf Nawatat, and then in this it's got nu. The whole verse reads Lehe Amkum Aye Murara Kharadu Empa Natharu Shalel Wunawap Pa Munwapu Bi Pa Nabab Yananan Afaf Nawatat Nu. So it says, for you all, so in translate, for you all, my beloved children of Panatharu, of Wunawap, the Munwapu, Nawapians, by way of, by way of Panabab Yananan, of Nawatat, Nun. So we see here Nawatat, or these brain dots or natural ether energy, these brain dots, understood, but you see Nawatat, so it's adding the feminine principle on the end of it. So this Panabab Yaanuwn, the incarnated master, is saying he is of these black dots. You understand? Remember, in one of the master secrets I read in, I think it was the previous class, it talks about being I am dark matter. Remember 90%, when he got to saying all the stuff that he was, I'm more than this, I'm more than that. If you go back to, I think, part 3, we went through that in some details. The interesting bit, as I say, he's saying of Nawatat. Yeah. So in one of the characteristics of natural ether energy, remember we said that ether can be affected by its environment. But one of the things I suppose we missed out was to say that within those ingredients or those black dots is feminine and masculine, can be feminine and masculine gender, or the expression of it within that. So Nawatat is informing you that, as I say, it is Wu-Sabat at least, and that who was informed or outformed to be informed to convey this message to our race in this day and time, and those who else will listen, is from a feminine origin. You understand? As I say, feminine forces are responsible for the growth of Wu-Sabat. You understand? So that's something that's in the first verse of natural ether energy, an interesting point to note. Now, so let's do with some prime movers stuff for the moment, just before we get into some of the other symbols. So 85, and so this is what's driving. So we're interested in the driving forces behind these energies, understood? And so the prime mover in, I suppose, for the physical is hydrogen. Hydrogen, you understand, into helium and so on. It's the prime mover, hydrogen. You understand? Which is to say, it driving, and its combination with the obviously different other elements led to obviously all of the 99 elements being produced. But it is the prime mover in terms of the world of some things. So let's look at what the prime mover is for the world of nothing, as we would have, or things. So 85, the nature of is the rule. So remember, we were dealing with is of are of is, in previous classes. So we're interested in what of means, and we find that in natural ether energy. It says 85. The nature of is the rule, is the rule. So of is the rule or is a rule. And so it says of is the what? The purpose, and the purpose is of Fatir al-Akhakhat, Nashatat. Yeah, natural ether energies are to be the prime mover in nature towards two things: creation or disintegration. Creation, 9 ether, or disintegration, 6 ether. To be magnetism or magicism in organization and creation by Fatah nature, and to be the main organizing and controlling elements in the base or source of creation. And that source is, look at this, is the damagh, the brain. So the driving force or source, yeah, that's driving it is brain ether energy, or our brain. Yeah, which processes what? Or holds or interacts with, we talk about our individual mind, which is a connection to what? The mental, which is a reservoir of intellects into it. So driving, or the prime mover, the prime mover is our brain. So who is bringing into correlation absolute matter? So you should know that by now. Absolute what? Yeah, absolute matter. Absolute matter versus absolute space. Something is bringing those two things into correlation. Who is doing that? Okay, well, we see here that there are matter-space powers that are being brought together by the individual to do that. Yeah, so we see here what? 3 things that the master gives us in the book. So one is obviously what is being taught in natural ether energy. So you understanding, knowing what is being conveyed, obviously over these various different classes, but more importantly in the book itself, is that understanding of it, the awareness of it, how it all works, what it consists of, so on and so forth. Yeah, so this formulates that first part. What is natural? What is nature? How are these things defined, understood? And so we get an understanding of the two things being expressed here. Yes, culminating in ether and energy. Understood? So this correlation, understanding of it, part 1. The second part of these magical or matter-space powers is reasoning, in terms of this driving force that's sitting behind it. Yeah, nakush, reasoning. And then the third aspect that facilitate this creation is muachachu, that's Ifrit beings. I should have an S on the end. But Ifrit beings, yeah, who are responsible for shaping and implementing, as I say, creation, all being brought together, as I say, by bringing these two states into correlation with each other, which, as we read earlier in the Holy Tablets, as we're expressing, you are the Muachachu, and you are the children of the Muachachu, or Ifrit beings, which is what we're talking about when we're referring to the Morozaku, the Riskians, the Ifrit parents. Understood? One of those manifestations of that is sons. So it came from an energy state first. Yeah, and how we control those energies. Because as I say, as ether is expressing itself through these different environments, somebody has to represent the sun here on earth. That is a doctrine of correspondence at work. As above, so below. And we can see it from the very origin of things. You understand? It permeating, and that connection, you understand, from the very origin of things that we are a part of. We are not separate from it. We are a part of it. That's what we say, isn't it? As we open this class, I am a part of all is a part of me, as we said earlier, or in previous classes. Yes, a thing and all things are the same. under the rule of things. Yeah, and how, as I say, when you tumble a bit of yourself forward in the production of a child, for example, you're donating a piece of yourself forward. That part of you is you. As one cell can be a part and it can be all at the same time of you. Let's do some questions then. Any questions? Or can you see the questions now?
I don't see any questions.
Okay, right. So, yeah. So the three aspects of expression of our magical powers here is in these three elements here. You understand? Yeah. And the prime mover, which is driving, sitting behind this creation, is obviously natural ether energies, but it's being driven in one sense by our brain. And its importance and its linked to what we're calling mind and the mental. Now, so a question was asked, what does that purple symbol mean? I think it was on the Tet symbol, yes? Well, you can see here it is the placenta. So let's go back, see if we're paying attention, because the same symbol, I think brother asked the question there, see that same symbol there, that purple symbol, which say this is the Tet, obviously symbol say for the human body, that, as you see the A note there, and obviously the little people, yes, the sands people, the little people, us as the little people who ever looted out the waters, yeah, some referred to as hominids and different names. Yes, we see the placenta in the middle of that. Yeah, that I suppose the life egg. Yeah, on the outer exterior of the egg. So here we see various different symbols, and so this is the symbol. This when you see this symbol here, and it's obviously facing upwards. So this is obviously empty space, as it's describing there, a weaved basket. Or web, which is akin to the skin of an individual. Yeah, the word nabab means master. So this is obviously making reference to the fact of an environment, but clearly with a outer part, like the outer part of a cell or something of that nature as well. So we see that the Tet or tatat, yeah, which is a loaf of bread, you see here in the definition, so similar to a woman who's pregnant, and the growth that takes place within. Interesting enough, isn't it, in, I think, the UK, I don't know if it's the same in the States, but we have a term, isn't it, bun in the oven. Yeah, colloquialism, bun in the oven. And that is symbolic of a pregnant female, isn't it, to say that somebody's pregnant. So it's interesting that when you go back to ancient Egypt, we find this symbol of the loaf and the saying of bread in that regard. Now, it brings new understanding if you really understand what's going on in the Bible when it talks about give us this day our daily bread, understand, and the food for the God's doctrine. But let's not get off topic. But so we see here the combination of the two halves of the, or semicircle or whatever, gives birth to the khalas, isn't it? Yes? Yeah, so the environment, they both typically represent, isn't it, an environment. And so that space, it allows or facilitates growth. Yes, so the woman has the darkness of existence within her womb, doesn't she? You understand? And it facilitates growth, you understand, in that process. So you bring the two together, we get our khalas or placenta symbol, you understand? And so we're being asked to note the fact, yes, that this sharak symbol, spark of life, yes, if we go right in the center of it, it holds that placenta symbol, isn't it? Yeah, but to note that the energies here are are moving in multi-directional. They're coming out in all directions. So the sperm, the ovum, you understand? All contained within this placenta, and it facilitates or carries that original spark of life or existence, brings it into this protected environment for growth purposes. So this is basically the shell of the egg, isn't it? Yeah, it just happens to be a soft shell in human beings, which the woman carries obviously for 9 months, but it also allows the transference clearly of not only nutrients but ancestral, in a sense, transference by way of the blood, the mother, as it passes on to the child, whilst, as I say, the child's in the womb. You understand? So without that the child would not be fed. So within that darkness, obviously it facilitates growth. You understand? As we can see in other places like the soil, you understand, which is dark in color, whatever, full of energy and nutrients. If it's working correctly, things placed in it grow. Yeah, so we have to be careful what we place in there, because if you place bad seeds, it's going to cause bad seeds to grow. If you place good seeds or positive seeds, then it's going to cause them to grow. So in us taking control, we understand what we're planting. Obviously through lust, 6 ether, we planted many seeds as a race, not knowing what the outcome was to be on the other side of it. So understanding how these things work, the symbolism, gives us obviously better control. So I think we have covered this in some detail. So is that the importance of your brain. You understand? And it's more than just controlling one's physical body and structure, but actually it is an actual form of natural ether energy, and one of its manifestations is obviously it comes into a brain. But interestingly enough, when you die, the brain liquefies. So when we're talking about this melting down, or you're reading about this melting down of ether, it's producing what you maybe call more solid things, but then it's also allowing those things to produce or emanate ether energy as well. So let's just work through its importance. And it says, know that, 93, know that invisible or fatiral achach nashatat, natural ether energies are the sayem tamadu'at, divine creators by way of invisible nakush, reasoning, understand? And the visible damagh, brain, is the physical creators by way of natural ether energy with purpose and reason for all natural namam growth creations. Understood? So, as I say, the essence of what we're talking about there. So this, the hidden aspect, or which is not now hidden to you because you're aware of it now, because you've been taught. So perception is there, but not seen with your physical eyes. That's why we're calling it invisible. So there's this, the counterpart, if one wants to say, the divine creator in you is those earlier things of those 3 rules that we were dealing with. Yes? So in the hidden aspect of it, the understanding, the knowledge, the awareness, overstood, yes? So what we've been learning about ether, energy, being taught, it's awareness or whatever, that within your knowledge of it is forcing you now to think about what's in that nothingness, what's in that blackness. We didn't give it any credence before, still don't, maybe in societies here. We're interested in the fancy things like gold and platinum and etc. But these things can't be produced without the base metals, which have no value in this society. But the base metals are the important, because without the base metals, you can't produce those precious metals, or what are considered to be precious in this society. Hence, basic energy gave birth to energy. Now you know this, your awareness of it, you're paying attention, you're reaching into it, you're understanding the correspondence, the blackness in the woman. This represents or correlates to what's taking place there in the universe. That awareness of it is tying you into the divine, your divine aspect of your mind, which you're connected to. So that's stage one. And then the physical manifestation of that is your brain. And so its ability to take those black dots, you bring them into correlation, and then they then now melt down, as it's being described out, or evolve into thoughts, which then jump between as brain seeds, which are then manipulated and fire off in terms of synaptic sparks, is the amazement of who and what we are. And sadly, we haven't been paying enough attention to it until one encounters the incarnated master to point you out and focus you on the who you are and what your powers and abilities are in this day and time. So the Damag brain is the physical creators by way of natural ether energy with purpose of, you understand, and reason for all Namam growth creations. 94. It is an actual fact that the brain is indeed the generating battery, which is supplied with a flow of brain ethers from the circulating Damam blood in the body, and invisible brain ethers are the natural electricity in the brain as synapses and sparks and melt down for thought and tamudishiyat creativity. 95. Reason is the fatirat achach, or natural ether and concentrated mind that brain produces in the blood by way of its hearts and lungs. And the mind energy reason creates all person, place and things by the help of Mu'achachu, etheric beings. Understood? So this is a significant point of into overstanding for us, as I say, in the individual, understood, because the Nagaru or Negroid is able to bring all of these things under its power, understood, in order to produce things, in order to create, in order to grow things. Understand? And that is what we represent clearly as Mu'achachu or Ifrit beings. So, 96. Who themselves are various degrees and forms of concentrated mind known as ethereal energy reason, who is the offspring of brain natural ether energies on their tazuzal vibrational level in their dimensions. Know that light, 97, know that light dimensions is not the exact same as light in this one protected by gravitation, or this Mikwak planet would burn up from sun's rays. So obviously the sun is protected, the planet is protected by a number of different spheres, and the final one being the magnetic sphere surrounding the planet, which protects us obviously from the light being emanated from the sun. We're talking about light, we're talking about particles moving in darkness at a certain speed. Understood? So at a certain speed. So obviously we have the light, the physical light, which really is associated oftentimes with fire, but this is making reference to light, or as I say, energies moving in darkness at a certain speed, which is different in other dimensions. So the manifestation or the changes of what we're calling mental into mind, and obviously here culminating in how we then utilize that by way of our brain, understand, is, as I say, the driving force which is sitting behind it. So at different levels, as I say, you are seeing the same thing, but being expressed differently. Understood? Remember when we gave you the example previously, we showed you the picture of a peacock, and depending on how you looked at it, yeah, maybe the more intensively you got, you saw, oh, this is made up of squares. It's not really a picture. It's made up of squares. The further in you got again, you see even those squares, you understand, oh, they're somebody else looking at it might look at it, oh, I do deals with computers, see, oh, it's only an expression of zeros and ones, on and off switches. So the deeper you go, it's the same thing, but on different levels or dimensions, it's being expressed or shown differently. Understood? And so what you're having to do as a Sabaean or as an ontologist, you're going through these levels to understand your connection to the very source of all, in a sense, all creation, all existence, so on and so forth. And the master is giving you the answer of what you are, but the question is, are we understanding it? Because you're already being told in its simplest fashion, you're a part of all. But do we fully understand or understand into an overstanding what that means? And so we're walking this journey, and the awareness is elevating, obviously, the powers that we find within us, and we find ourselves trapped. So are we trapped? Are we really trapped, or are we trapped because we think we're trapped? You understand? Yeah, because if we're starting to read how powerful we're supposed to be, then the question is, well, why are we still in this condition? Yeah, and the master said, well, you all are spiritually weak. So the question is that we're not expressing it. We don't have, I use the word belief loosely, in those abilities, or we're not, as I say, in terms of iteration, in terms of how our brain works, putting them into practice, reiterating, going over them again, putting them into practice, mastering, as they say. Yeah, so it becomes part of our being and putting these powers to the test. So let's look at a few of these symbols. Need to come to oh god, that's over time. Okay, I need to disappear short. I'm already over time. All right, let's try and move through this very quickly. So we can see some of these powers here, some of these symbols. So here we see 3 new bowls, yes, and we see the symbol of the sky, and we see the manifestation, as I say, of naturally occurring water. So horizontal lines like this means naturally occurring water, as opposed to if it was vertical this way, it would be man-made or occurring water, like a canal, for example, as opposed to a river, which has been created. Now we look at some of these symbols as well, which have got various different names. So we saw tatat, new bowl, so that's a n sound, tatat, yeah, ta sound, and then we see sky here, patat, and so we see here nu and ta is not, and say gestation, 3 cycles. So interesting enough, in this one we see that when the ingredients is placed within the correct environment, so this almost seed and the womb, yes, we see triple darkness or 3 cycles is necessary in order to produce, as I say, the child that's being born here. So we see some of that symbolism being created, but obviously there's a mental creation before we get to the physical one. Understood. The symbol here you see as a symbol for ether, and in this instance we see it as a symbol for 9 ether, symbolic of the hair texture of the only people with true hair, as opposed to fur. So this is a really word, say U or W, because in English W and U is a U. It's got the same sound, yeah? U and U, even though. So what you realize in the English language, that all the letters are supposed to have a unique sound, and they don't. Yeah, the sound is doubled up. So F, for example, is a E sound. It's not an F sound. It's a F. It's an EF sound. It's not a F sound, is it? You understand? So you say F, it's an E sound. So we have duplicate symbols. That's why you see the U in it. So this is Ulaf or Walaf, and it means a coil or spiral. You understand? And we see that symbol on the crown of Lower Egypt. Yes, let's look at it. So we see the Deshret, the crown for Lower Egypt, and the Hejet. We see those combination, upper and lower, and then the double crown. So a person who's able to rule upper and lower. So in the unified, they refer to it as the Peshet. Understand? In that regard. Yeah. So that symbol in there, we see it in there, but in the, obviously in facing, so it's in the reverse, I suppose, in that sense. And it's symbolizing, as I say, ether or the coiling, symbol in that regard. Here we see 3 symbols: the Palel, the stool, the Tatat, here as the loaf, bread, in that regard. And then we see a new symbol here, which is called the Habal. And this is a helix in the sound, so it gives you that ha sound. So we call H, but ha sound, helix. And that is what one would describe as a flex. There's a type of rope which the name escapes me just for a second. In the sound, flex. I think it's flex seed. It's a type of rope. In the sound, I might not be pronouncing that quite properly, but it's a certain type of rope. I think it's flex seed or something like that. Type of rope. And if you look at the design of the rope, then what you find is that it gives that helix type shape. You understand? It's flex. Flex wick or something like that. I think, or wick flex. So I'll look up the pronunciation shortly just to correct that. I've just got out of my head slightly. So we see in the various different symbols, and then you see these, with the 3 of them together, they refer to it as Nun. So that ocean, which Nun, which is the same word actually, with the Jonah and the whale story. The actual word for whale, interesting enough, in the Bible of the Christians, is the word for whale is Nun. And interesting enough, that even though it's a mythological story, that obviously one of our ancestors, which is the whale or the dolphin, as a mammal. Remember the seed of our seed, or us as a cellular life form, was placed in the dolphin, which word dolphin means womb, and the dolphin was transported here by way of Sirius and placed in the waters. And obviously, as the dolphin defecated in the waters, that led, as I say, to the germination of those waters by way of the first cell of our life form being developed in the waters, you understand? So interesting, as I say, that within their symbolism, there's some hidden link to the truth in there. Now, obviously, one of the importance we see in another set of symbolism that's used is the Paa Pau'ut, you understand, or the 9 Enneads of Heliopolis, which you know as Atum. I'm going to use the kind of more popular names, but Atum, who gave birth to Shu and Tefnut, who then gave birth to Geb or Nut and Geb, who then gave birth to Osiris, Isis, Nephthys, and Set. Understood? So these 9 points which I think is talked about on last week's class, like these 9 etheric beings, yeah, they gave birth to these 9 dwelling places, so on and so forth. So we see the manifestation of these of natural ether energies and how it gives birth to these 9 forces, which obviously led to 9 etheric beings. They're 9 concepts of idea of creation, which has led to 9 dwelling places, but led to 9 physical ethers, so 9 different types or species of Nagaru being born or created as a result of that. And we see that same characteristic in the design. So if you were to slice the tail of a sperm and you looked at it with through an electron microscope, you would see that it has 9 centrioles or tubes, which basically help to take various different germ life and fuse it into one, in the sense, i.e., that allows the formulation of a universe, because a universe means to verse energy into one form, correct? So there's 9 centrioles in the sperm life form. So the manifestation of these natural ether energies in these various different environments, you see the correspondence, the doctrine of correspondence here at play, where we're seeing this absolute correlation expressing itself in the various different designs that result by way of these natural ether energies adjusting to the various environments. And we see that as well in the human body, in the endocrinal glandular system. Most talk of 7 glands, correct? But those 7 glands relate because those races or sub-races have 7 glands, whereas we have 9. The difference is that the 2 are, we have the additional 2 don't perform the same function, obviously, as the other 7 physical glands. We have 2 higher glands giving us our complete 9, obviously, to enable that or helps facilitate our higher senses. Now, as we were talking about earlier with the different types of ethers, well, one of the things that your glands, or that they function in, is they sit obviously you have the glands and then you have the sockets that they sit within. So much like a socket in your house, for example, which, remember, you're getting electrical energy all the way being generated from a power station, being then stepped down by various different transformers to bring in a smaller amount of that electrical energy that you can plug into and utilize in your home. Well, in the same way, your glands are taking in all of this external outside energy and then you bringing it into a form that can be just enough to be utilized, in the same, for the glands to utilize to then produce hormones to inform, as it's shown in 113, various different life functions in the body. You understand? Yeah, hormones. And you see it in especially many movies. I think Harry Potter is one of the ones that comes to mind, of the descriptions of these life stories and life journeys being expressed in movies, but all these different special effects, etc., are all being put around it. But it's the same story. You understand? I think Harry Potter, there's 3 people, isn't it? There's Harry Potter, there's the ginger guy, you understand, and then there's his friend Hermione, which is the same word as hormone, you understand? And then the master teacher tells you it's not Harry Potter, it's Hara Reye Pata, you understand? So which throws another curveball into where they get their stuff from, if you really understand how these stories are and what's going on and what's being expressed. Understand? Because it's the same kind of story, seems to be repeating itself all the time. The same Harry Potter story is the same as the Matrix story, you understand? And many other different movies there, if you're really paying attention to what's going on. So, right, how much have we got left? Because I'm gonna have to disappear. I'm behind time. Okay. see if we've got enough time to get through this. Okay, all right. I'm gonna have to fly through. Yeah, I'm gonna have to fly through this. Go to the end. What I may do is maybe at the start of the next session, we can just finish off these slides and get into the next one, because unfortunately I've got to disappear now for another meeting. So sorry, a bit of a rush on that one, and apologies for the sound. We'll fix it for the next time. Let me not do everybody like that. I'll finish at the start of this class, although it'll be a different entry subject, just so we can finish off last few slides, and then we can just explain to you a bit properly the difference between Nupu and Zupu forces. Understood? So I think you'll probably be interested. So the Nu bubble is giving us that N sound, Ulaf or Walaf, the Palel symbol there for the stool, Ulaf again. So it's important, I think, you just get a little bit of an understanding of what these symbols mean and how it changes, obviously, for Zupu. So last few slides probably take about 15-20 minutes. So we'll do that accordingly at the start of the next session, which is on the 6th of December, and it's our last session for the year. So probably don't want to miss that one in that regard. Okay. Excuse me. So any burning questions before we close out today?
I don't see any questions here. Maybe you want to check on yours. I don't see any on my screen. Oh, there's a raised hand, Adorna.
Okay, no written questions on this side. So I've just got
if you could unmute her microphone, because I don't have that facility here.
Hello?
Did you drop? Hello, yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Sorry, I missed that slide that you showed what had the 3 9s. Can you put it back up again, please? Thank you.
Which one was that one? Which one was that one?
No. Yeah.
Oh, this one?
Yeah. Thank you very much. You can take it down.
Well, I was just teasing that one. I hadn't spoken on that one yet, but there you go. So yeah, I'll finish off those next session. So thank you for your patience with the sound. So we'll get that fixed for the next time. Next class, it says on the 6th of December. So we will finish just last few things on natural ether energy, and then as I say, I think we've got another class, which I think is the deaf wife, children of Jesus Christ. So we're uncovering that, some of the hidden mysteries of that story. So we'll do those 2 things, I think, in the one session. So thank you for attending today and bearing with us. Appreciate that, Den Ami Raye. Appreciate that feedback. And we'll catch you next time on the 6th of December. If you haven't left your details in the chat, you've got some details to do that now if you want that ancestral information. If not, we'll probably post some of it on the Facebook page, or just email us at our email address. Obviously, you've got it there in the notifications that you receive for class, so you can just email us if you don't get it done right now. Just email us, just requesting that information. We can send it to you via email. It's not a problem. Okay, appreciate it. Everybody take care, and we will see you next time.